6 o'clock. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's good to see this many people here. We don't usually draw much of a crowd these days, so it's a pleasure to see everybody tonight. I'd like to remind everybody to please silence your electronic devices, and if you would, please stand and join me in the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Lord, we ask you to open our hearts and minds tonight so that we may conduct our business with wisdom and compassion. Help us to promote policies that work toward the common good of all people. We ask your continued blessings upon our amazing city. We pray in a special way tonight for those who are struggling with hardships during this holiday season. May they feel your love and comfort, and may each of us never forget those who are less fortunate than ourselves. We ask this in your name. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So our first item on the agenda tonight is a very pleasant one. It's I've got a long script here that we're going to recognize a very good friend of all of ours, Mr. Alan Denham. Now, I have a long script here, but it seems odd to me to read a script about somebody who's become a friend. And when I first started on the council, I met Alan, actually probably met him a little bit before that, and I met Alan as the city liaison from Tampa Electric to the city of Temple Terrace. And in his official capacity, I met him. But over that period of time since then, I've gotten to know Alan as a friend, and I think of him that way as much as anything. And I could go on and on and on, but Alan has been the TICO liaison to the city of Temple Terrace for 10 years now. He's been with TICO 35, if I have that correctly. And really, I can't say enough about Alan. We have survived hurricanes together, power outages, tree limbs down, just about everything that you can imagine. And usually he's calling us before we call him. That's just the kind of way Alan is. Any issue involving rights of way or trees or anything, it's just a text or a cell phone call away. He always takes your call. I don't think I've ever had to leave a message for Alan. He always takes his call. Just an amazing liaison to have from the Tampa Electric Company, and speaks highly of TICO too, by the way. It's not just Alan didn't do all that by himself, but you know, TICO is a tremendous partner for the city, and Alan has been a big part of that. But over and above that, Alan and TICO have also financially supported some initiatives here in our community, the Boys and Girls Club, the on and on and on. Community events that we host are oftentimes sponsored, at least in part, by TICO, so they have been a tremendous partner to us over the years. And Alan, I wish all of you could know him like I know him. He's just one of those people that he's always got a smile. He's always seems to be in a good mood. He just, no matter what kind of a day you're having, if you see Alan, you always feel better about it afterwards, or you just feel guilty for being down in the dumps because you're not like Alan. But just one of those people, and I met his wife tonight, and I don't know what their plans are in retirement, but I can tell you, as busy as the council members are up here with events at night, going to galas and fundraisers and everything, I don't think I go to very many things where I don't see Alan there. So I don't know what he's going to do with all his time at home in the evening. But Alan, I am confident that TICO will replace you. Somebody will assume your duties, but you're one of those people that nobody's really going to replace. So, and I have a plaque here that all of us would like to present to you. If you would approach the podium.
Yeah.
Good friend, thank you.
Well, just to say a few words, I want to thank you for the invitation to be here. It's really been one of the highlights of my career and one of my pleasures to work with all of you from an elected official standpoint to staff. Temple Terrace has been a great community, very welcoming, and and the community as well, the people in the community. So really appreciated the opportunity. I've been very fortunate to work for a company like TECO for 35 years, and one that values connections with the community and involvement with our key governmental organizations. So I've just, very, very happy to be in that role and to work with and for you in the city. And I'm going to miss our relationships and seeing you on a regular basis, although working from home for the past 9 months has kind of helped work me into that a little bit. But I'm looking forward to what my next step's going to be. I don't have a specific plan yet, but I'm retiring officially at the end of December, and we'll see what else life leads me. So. Good. Well, we consider you an honorary citizen of Temple Terrace. Well, thank you. Be happy to make you a real citizen of Temple Terrace if you. We're pretty settled in our place in Brandon. And I do want to take a minute to introduce. I know some of you may have met my wife over the years, but to introduce my wife, Lulu, who has also been very gracious to allow me to get out and do the things I do, as you're right, a lot of evenings, weekends, and she's been very patient with that and very supportive. So appreciate her being here tonight. So thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Alan. This is very nice. Somebody has big shoes to fill there. So next item on the agenda is recognition of the Temple Terrace Police Department's Reaccreditation Award. Just in time is Chief Ken Albano. Welcome, sir.
Sir.
So the Temple Terrace Police Department is proud to announce that during a meeting of the Commission for Law Enforcement Accreditation on October the 15th, the Police Department was once again reawarded reaccreditation status. The award of accreditation status confirms that the Temple Terrace Police Department complies with approximately 260 individual standards required to retain its status as an accredited agency in the state of Florida. Many of these standards are critical to life, health, and safety issues. Verification by a team of outside assessors is required to ensure that the Temple Terrace Police Department meets the Commission standards and is part of a voluntary process that must be undertaken every 3 years to maintain accreditation. Accreditation status through the Commission for Florida Law Enforcement Accreditation is a highly regarded statewide recognition of law enforcement professionalism and excellence. So I'd like to congratulate Chief Albano and the Temple Terrace Police Department on attaining reaccreditations. And I understand this is our third reaccreditation, right?
Yes, sir.
Very good. So would you like to say a few words, Chief?
Yes, I would, sir. I just wanted to add to that this is something that seems like many years ago now. Some of the assessors then and some of the previous attempts, we were told that we couldn't be accredited. Our facilities wouldn't allow for us to be accredited. But because of the tenacity and the perseverance of the men and women, civilian and sworn, of this agency, the inner workings that we have with other departments that actually are a part of our accreditation process, like human resources and finance, we were able to get it done. And accreditation is simply an outward sign of an inward commitment to excellence, as you said. So our citizenry has always been supportive of us. This council has always been supportive of us. You know us, so you know that's who we are. But accreditation forms the foundation, actually. It's the building block upon which we do everything else. So it's very important to us, and it helps us to be able to show those that don't know us that we are at that level of excellence that's required to be accredited. So thank you for recognizing us here tonight, and we've already begun. The day after you get reaccredited, you're on your next reaccreditation cycle. So we've already begun taking the steps necessary to continue this.
Very good. Thank you, Chief. I'd just like to say a word to my fellow colleagues up here. Many of you know our Senior Community Service Officer Patrick Brown. Patrick recently assumed the role of accreditation manager for the police department when the previous accreditation manager retired. And normally, the accreditation manager is in place for a while before there's an on-site reaccreditation process. Well, that didn't happen here. Patrick was put in place very shortly before the on-site accreditation, and having sat on both sides of the accreditation table as both an assessor and a agency trying to be accredited, I can tell you that that's not an easy position to be in. And so Patrick didn't get accredited on his own, but I can tell you that I guarantee you Patrick had some sleepless nights and long weekends at home trying to pull this off. And you get a team of strangers coming in, and it's your job to prove that you're in compliance with these 260 some odd standards. So that's no easy task. And particularly during COVID, when they're doing these things virtually, it's really no easy task. And so my congratulations to Patrick, if you would pass that along too.
Yes, sir.
And I have your certificate to come down as though I had anything to do with this, but
Somebody put wheels on our chairs.
thank you, sir. Next item on the agenda is an ICMA award. This is from the International City Managers Association. Mr. Rob Duncan is here. Mr. Duncan is the managing director of Imagine That Performance, and he's here to represent the International City Managers Association and bestow an award that's, honestly, folks, very cryptic. I tried to get a little information about this, and Mr. Duncan was holding the cards kind of close to his chest. So welcome, Mr. Duncan.
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, council members, City Manager Stevenson, staff, and residents of the great city of Temple Terrace. My name is Rob Duncan. I'm the Managing Director of Imagine That Performance, and I'm here this evening on behalf of the Florida City and County Managers Association, where I serve on the Communications Committee. On behalf of FCCMA, we are privileged to present the City of Temple Terrace with a certificate celebrating 2020 as your 65th year in the council manager form of government, as recognized by the International City County Management Association. On behalf of the officers, the board of directors, and membership of FCCMA, we offer our sincere congratulations on this milestone achievement. The council manager form of government was created to help separate administration from direct political influence and establish merit-based practices within local government. It is actually modeled after a corporation's framework, with voters, like stockholders, selecting a council, like a board of directors, who in turn appoint a manager, a professional executive, to advise council and implement its actions through ordinances and policies. In Florida, nearly 70% of the 411 cities operate under the council manager form of government, and all but 2 of the counties in the state are professionally managed. The City of Temple Terrace is recognized as a champion of the council manager form of government, where you have a city council that works together in a professional manner to make decisions and establish policies that are in the best interest of your community and stakeholders. Temple Terrace is fortunate to have an FCCMA member leading your city and City Manager Charles Stevenson. Mr. Stevenson has over 24 years of local government management and leadership experience. Charles is respected by professionals around the county, the state, and the country as an individual who maintains the highest integrity and ethics and is always willing to promote his community while helping other cities that may need assistance. Mr. Stevenson leads a staff that's committed to providing the highest quality of life possible to the residents of the city of Temple Terrace. On behalf of FCCMA, we congratulate the City of Temple Terrace on this milestone achievement of being the council manager community for 65 years. And at this time, I would like to present the council and city manager with a certificate commemorating this achievement.
All right, Charles, you have to get up for this one.
You have to participate.
Do I have to take a vote?
Yeah.
Aye.
I had no idea this was coming. Next item is a presentation on Wastewater Master Plan Phase 1. Public Works Director Troy Tinch will present. Now, see, we go from awards to the wastewater treatment.
Everybody received their Christmas gifts, right? So, good evening, everyone.
Evening.
Your Honorable Mayor, City Council, Troy Tinch, City Public Works Utilities Director. And I'm here this evening to discuss Phase 1 of the Wastewater Master Plan. Just to kind of a quick overview of what we were looking to accomplish for this master plan. As you guys recall, you approved this about middle of the year last year. Kimberly Horns worked very diligently on this Phase 1 process. So what we wanted to do is take a kind of a holistic look at our wastewater system, get a better idea how it works. We wanted to also look at all of our lift stations, do a condition assessment of those lift stations. We wanted to look at our interlocal agreement that we have with the City of Tampa to make sure that that's correct, that all the flow rates, the maximum daily flow rates that we have identified match up with where we are today and where we hope to be in the future. In addition, we also developed a 5-year CIP for our lift stations, so that all that information is contained in there. And then we initiated the process to look at a potential rate study that, as we transition from Phase 1 into Phase 2 and incorporate some other elements into the overall wastewater master plan, we'll be able to kind of develop and bring to you at that time. So that's in general what we were looking to do. So I wanted to kind of present the information for you tonight. So we'll get started. So again, we started off by looking at all of our sewer sheds, our sewer basins. And what you have are 3 major sewer basins, which stands to reason because we have 3 master lift stations. So there's 3 sewer basins, all flow to those 3 specific areas. On your left-hand side there, you have sewer basin SA, and that's located up here off Fowler Avenue. As you know, we are getting ready to rehab that station, and that should be initiated at the first of the year. Looking to have about a 6 to 8 week window of construction. So hopefully have this done by the 1st of March. And I can tell you that it will be a huge relief to staff and myself to have that completed. It's quite an undertaking, quite a dollar amount attached to it, but a big effort, and we're looking forward to getting that done. In the middle of the screen there, you have sewer basin SB, and SB is located down on Harney Road at the Harney Bypass Canal, right where it connects into the river. And that incorporates the northern part of the city, up around the telecom community, and then everything really on the east side of the Hillsborough River. And all that drains down into that basin. That is our largest sewer shed and our largest master lift station. And then finally we have the B station, which is located down in Boy Scout Park. That's down in the peninsula area of Temple Terrace. And basically it drains everything south of Fowler Avenue. So those stations, they all send all of our affluent water again out to the City of Tampa from those locations. So what are some of the data collection efforts that we went through and some determinations that we made? Well, we determined we had about 25 miles of force main, we have 31 lift stations that the city maintains, 25 private stations in and around the city. Obviously, we don't maintain those private stations. We did have 2 larger stations that we did incorporate into the model. It would be the Patel High School, and we also incorporated in the Hillsborough County Bus Depot. I don't know if you guys know that, but at the far eastern edge of our service area out off of 301, there's a large bus depot out there. That lift station collects Hillsborough County, unincorporated county. It then pumps into the city of Temple Terrace to be then pumped to the city of Tampa for treatment. So we incorporated that in as a really large station. Wanted to make sure that we had those pressures. In addition, we identified about 9,000 customers or connections to our system, and we have about 92 miles of gravity sewer. The gravity sewer system is one that we will be evaluating in phase 2. So it was not evaluated in phase 1. Again, phase 1 was just mainly focused on our lift stations, and then we did a review of pressures within our force mains to develop that model. So how do we go about collecting this? Well, we went out to each of our 31 lift stations. We did a drawdown test. Basically, that is you allow the wet well to fill it with affluent water to the point of its inflow. Once it reaches that equalization point, you turn the pumps on. It runs for a minute. You measure the depth at which it pumps the wet well down. And the wet well is just simply that. It's a large well that contains all the affluent water. You then you turn the pumps off. You let the affluent that's flowing into the wet well continue to flow. You measure the distance by which it rises. So what you end up with is your pump down level, and then you add in the affluent, because while you're pumping down, affluent is continuing to flow in to that, and you're able to determine your volume of affluent that is pumped out of the system, and it helps you make the determination of pressures, and it's also utilized in developing your hydrologic model. And so if you look at the small graph that's located down in the right-hand corner, the green dots represent each of those pump down amounts, the MGD, and the model itself would be that linear line that runs at a 45-degree angle. So that shows that we calibrated the model in such a way that it almost perfectly lays in with the actual field environment. So calibration-wise, the model, we feel very strongly about it being spot on, if you will. So what do we do with that information? Well, with a hydrologic model, we can make a determination of pressures within our force mains. And these pressures help us let people know who are doing development, like you'll see at the bottom of the screen, come in and determine what size they need to have their pumps, what pressures, head pressures they'll be pushing against. So it really helps with that process of you're pushing into a force main. If you're pushing into a gravity system, it's a little different scenario. And we look at capacities at that point. But again, defining that hydrologic model is really important in making a determination for where the city is and where we can allow growth and how that growth will look. In addition, there's kind of a linear line diagram up in the upper right-hand corner. Again, the green, those are our master lift stations. Yellow, those are our city-owned, and then the white are the private lift stations. Kind of gives you an idea where they fall out. And the interconnection lines are just that, they're gravity and sewer line. So as I mentioned earlier, we also looked at the interlocal agreement between the city of Temple Terrace and the city of Tampa, because they do treat our wastewater. So they do set standards for our maximum daily flow amounts. And we look at that over time. And our first, where you see the kind of a larger jump is within the first 5 years. We're anticipating a pretty good level of growth over the next 5 years. But after that, we start getting a little more built out. Then it starts to slow a little bit. You don't see as much of a rise in that maximum daily flow determination. And that's just really associated with growth of the city and population. But again, it's not significant as you get past that 5-year mark. But what it did help us do, it helped us determine a few things. One, SB, it's our largest station. It also allows for the largest amount of effluent to be pumped out of it, and has the highest daily maximum amount allowable. And so we want to continue to kind of keep that sewer shed as it is. But it also helped us identify SA and realize that we need to up that a little bit, that maximum daily, that peak flow rate. So we went back to the city of Tampa. We had a discussion about the existing interlocal agreement that we have with them. We went back through that. We made some changes, worked with legal, spoke with Charles about it, has worked through the process. The city of Tampa is finalizing at this point, and there's still a question whether they'll approve it first and then we'll approve, or we'll approve, they'll approve. But I think what will end up happening is they'll approve it around the first of the year, and then I will bring it in front of this council for review and approval at that time. And again, all that's doing is allowing us to raise the amount of effluent that we can pump daily out of that station to the city of Tampa for treatment. So in addition to everything else, we also did our lift station inventory. And as you can see from that, there's a number of items that we looked at. The name of the lift station, the pumps, number of pumps, horsepower of the pumps, the GPM of the pumps, how much can they pump, what's the size and diameter of the force main that leaves that station, does it have odor control, what's the power of the station, and then finally, what's the overall condition and age of that station. So what we ended up with was a series of these exact lift station details. And so for the 31 lift stations, we have 31 of these sheets. They're all contained within the document I provided you earlier. And it basically gives you a condition assessment, overall condition assessment of that particular lift station as it currently exists. So what it also helped us do is it helped us kind of determine what are some standards that we want to kind of implement in the city. What do we want our sewer standards to be when we go in and rehab these stations? So as you can see on the left-hand side, you have a wet well that has not been rehabbed. On the right side, it's that very same wet well after it's been lined. You have new rails that have been put in that the pumps themselves actually rest on. You have new pipes coming out. So we make a determination how we want those systems to look, how we want the wet wells to look, so that they're more uniform as we go along from every one. In addition, historically, the manifolds were buried below ground in what we call vaults. So on the left-hand side, you can see that the vault is full of water, and that was very commonplace. So it kind of created a very unsanitary and unsafe condition for our folks to go in and work on those manifolds. In addition, it led to, as you can see from the photo, a lot of degradation of the manifold itself, due to it being basically immersed in water just about 24/7. So we brought those manifolds above ground, so they're up, they're easier to get to, they're easier to maintain, and easier to work on. So those are kind of some of the standards that we've started to implement, and you'll start to see in all our future lift stations. In addition, we took those assessment sheets, and we had several components that we wanted to evaluate. You can see those on the left-hand side of that column. And we weighted each of those according to what we thought was most important to potentially the least important. And then finally, we rated them on a scale of 1 to 5. So all 31 of our lift stations went through this process, 1 being the best condition, 5 being the potentially worst condition. And we used that then to develop our 5-year master plan, our 5-year CIP. And as you can see from this graphic, this is our 5-year plan for lift stations. Over the next 5 years, we look to be rehabbing about 2 to 3 stations per year. There's estimates there for those efforts. There's also a brief description of what we'll be looking to do, as well as the year that fiscal year we'll be looking to undertake that event. You can see there at the bottom of that, we estimated the approximate expenditure over that 5-year period, about $6.5 million. So we need to make sure that as we move along over the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, that we do that analysis of our rate to make sure that we can maintain our system. So that's a very important number, and something we'll be talking about at a later date in a much greater detail. So in synopsis, what we did under phase 1 is we have a much better understanding of our system as a whole. We developed that hydrologic model. Again, that's going to help us with future development. And that will also help us as we move into phase 2 to finalize that model to look at our gravity system. We did develop our lift station inventory. We did our drawdown test, so we have a better idea of how each individual station operates. Is it operating in its peak condition? And that, of course, then drives it as far as where it falls out in that CIP. Next 5 years, next 10 years, next 15 years. And then we ultimately developed a 5-year CIP. And what are we looking at as we move into phase 2? Well, we'll be looking at our incorporating the gravity system, that 92 miles of gravity system, doing a condition assessment of that system. In addition, we'll be looking at the air release, valve placement, and hammer analysis. You get that hammer analysis whenever the pump station kicks on and the affluent water starts flowing through that the force main, and you maybe have a turn in it. When it hits that turn, it hammers it. So you get a hammer effect. It can add to degradation of the force main and ultimately a failure of it. So we want to analyze that to make sure it's not significant in certain areas. And we can do things with the lift station to kind of help lessen that effect. We also we'll look to do a 5-year CIP for all of our gravity system. So we'll be looking at things like I&I and flow and infiltration, trying to make a determination, where's it the greatest? We speculate, we know it's in the southern part of the city where it's the oldest, where our system is the oldest. So we'll be looking to initiate a lining program. We'll also be looking at our manholes to initiate a manhole lining program. And to get this done, we'll be looking to set up a set of contractors. We'll be providing, very similar to like Hillsborough County, we'll release an RFB, request for bid. We'll give them a list of bid items to bid on. And so in the future, as we move along and we know we need to line, we have $300,000 to line some of our gravity mains, we simply say, okay, contractor, here, you were the lowest bid on for this particular line item. We need you to go ahead and line as much as you can do for $300,000. Lift station repairs, very same thing. Lift station rehabs, same. So what that does for us for the city is that lessens that window, that length of time that we spend on bidding out these things individually. It would be more or less bidding out our entire system as a whole. And so it really helps us with that process. It streamlines that effect, kind of cuts that 3 to 6 month window out of that bid process, and really help us kind of stay on top of things, spend things when we say we're going to spend them. A lot of the times of the fiscal year, we spend ourselves turning our circles and spinning our wheels because we're waiting on bids to come in, or we're putting together bid docs and all that. That would all be done, and it would just help streamline that. But the biggest, probably the most important thing that we're looking at in phase 2 will be the finalization of the revenue sufficiency analysis. And again, I kind of spoke to this earlier. This is really what drives the boat. We know we'll have a good idea of what our CIP looks like for all of our force mains. We'll know what our CIP looks like for all of our lift stations, and we'll know what our CIP looks like for all of our gravity. What's it going to take to continue to maintain that system and keep it fully functional and operational? Then that analysis is driven from that. We know the dollar amounts, we know the years, the span of years, and that will be where the rubber meets the road, if you will. So I will be bringing that analysis forward to you shortly before we go enter into the budgeting process for FY21. That's my plan, so that we can start kind of talking about what do we need to see those rates as we move forward into 22, 23, 24, and so on and so forth. So that's something that we'll be looking at to come. Now, we have a couple of options here. So I passed out the actual report, so everybody has the nice little Christmas gift that I offered up. And we have two options. I would like to bring this, give you guys a couple weeks to kind of digest it, discuss it at maybe the first meeting in January. If everyone is agreeable and accepting of what's in this, go ahead and have a resolution ready to bring that forward and accept it. Or if you think maybe because of the holidays, everybody wants a little more time, I can look at potentially bringing it forward on the 16th, or the second meeting. I believe it's the 16th. 19th of January. So kind of a question to you, which you would prefer. Are you okay with having just a couple weeks to evaluate? I know maybe it looks a little daunting, but it's really the first, say, 15, 20 pages that are the meat of the document. A lot of the remainder is appendices and additional information. It's good stuff to have, but it's not really the most important part. That's really kind of the front end of the document.
I think we will defer to the city manager and staff for that decision, because we never know how weighty the meeting schedule is gonna be.
I see.
So let's just,
Why is it-
we'll let you guys
Okay.
figure that out.
We'll group up together, and again, there's a lot of information there.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of good information that allows us to do some planning for next year's budget and certainly
Right.
create that 5-year CIP. But we'll get together and we'll kind of gauge council on where you guys are at with
Yeah,
this.
let's just let you guys,
A lot of information there, and you guys need to kind of digest some
a
of it.
lot of it depends on what else is on the agenda.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Mr. Schuster.
Yeah, a very good report. I got just a couple of real.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay, well, hang on, let me make.
Okay,
sure
I'm
you're
sorry,
done. I'm gonna get to, so, are you done?
I've completed the presentation, and I will stand for questions if
Okay.
any.
Council member question, Mr. Schistler.
Thank you. I'm sorry. What was the last time we did this? At this extensive?
This extent, I don't know that this has ever been done to this
think so.
extent.
Okay, good.
Ever at the city. There have been bits and pieces done over time.
Yeah.
There was something done in 2012, I believe, and it was nowhere near to this level.
To this extent.
Yeah,
How much did this phase one cost us? I don't remember.
it was just under 200,000.
And the lining project, we already have a lining project in place, right?
We have some idea of where we want to do lining, and we've done some initial work. We've done some TVing in the southern part of the city, in the peninsula areas, I like to
I
call
thought
it.
we had a project that was going, that actually got hung up at 56 and,
That particular project it's not a lining, that's actually gonna be a replacement of that force main under 56th Street there at River Hills Boulevard. And I'll be bringing that forward probably right after the first of the year.
but I thought we had a lining project that we've discovered the force main issue at that point.
Right.
As a result of that.
Right, what we did is we did some TV work, as I mentioned earlier, so we have some data, which is gonna help us as we move into phase two. We've TV'd a portion of our sanitary sewer lines, gravity system, not all of it.
Okay.
A small portion, and again, down in southern, but we did TV that particular line and made a determination we had an offset. So as the gravity system should fit together, that's actually shifted a little bit.
Okay.
So that needs to be fixed, and we have a project that we'll be bringing forward that will actually directionally drill a new gravity line in at 56th Street.
Now, we've already approved the CCTV equipment prior, or do we need additional?
We have all the equipment.
We have all
have-
that.
We have a brand new
Okay,
system.
then
City
the
has
last thing I
some.
have, you never fail to amaze me with new terminology.
Yeah.
I gotta see the Muffin Monster, so. Maybe not, but you know.
That's an interesting name, but basically it's just a very aggressive pump.
Okay,
And by aggressive, I mean it really chops up a lot of the
Stuff.
rags and things that get into the sanitary sewer system. You'd be surprised, or maybe not surprised, what ends up in there. And it will clog some pumps. So we use this and it helps with grease, really cuts it up, gets it real fine so it can pump it on down the way.
Other questions?
I'm done.
No.
Thank you very,
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I can
yes,
address.
Mr. Stevenson.
Mr. Schistler, this has never been done that I've known.
Yeah.
We've always addressed these lift stations and force mains, gravity mains on a reactive basis.
I always
Rather
remember it
than
being
a proactive.
piecemeal.
Yes.
So this is a good proactive
Mr.
project. to
Mr.
get
Tinch
involved with.
and Kimley Horns put a good plan together here, and it's something that has been lacking for a long time. So hopefully it is a plan that we have to drive not only our rates but our system to make sure that it keeps up in good condition. So
Well, managing by objective beats managing by exception, so
Yeah.
we get ahead of the game.
We're not managing blind. We actually have eyes on,
That's good
if you
stuff.
will. And I think that is the biggest thing for me and for my staff. We actually know the condition of our system, and Charles has been wonderful to work with on this. He's been very supportive. And so as we move into phase two and I bring that forward, we'll have that ready to go, and then we'll have our system.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr.
All right, thank you.
So, next item on the agenda, ladies and gentlemen, is consideration of the minutes from our December 1st meeting. Has everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes? If so, is there a motion to
So
approve?
moved.
Second. Motion and a second. Any discussion or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? No nays. The minutes are passed. Persons wishing to be heard on items not listed on the agenda or items on the consent agenda. A 3-minute time limit will be imposed on all comments from the public. We do ask that speakers come to the podium and state their name and city of residence. During public comment, we like to assure everybody here and everybody watching at home that the directors and city manager and council members do take your comments and concerns seriously, and we do follow up on them. So I have one request from Mrs. Allison Fernandez. Welcome, Mrs. Fernandez. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Good evening, council members. I am here tonight to talk with you about council member training or new council member training. I know when I became a city council person in 2001, you know, I was not an expert in city operations, city government. I was obviously formally trained as an accountant, so I did know governmental accounting, but I know that many people who get elected to this position don't have experience with governmental accounting, don't have experience with wastewater treatment or water pump stations or police officer operations or fire department, et cetera. So I wanted to ask for you all and for our city to create a comprehensive training program for new council members that will include also city operations, governmental accounting, and legal issues, what would actually govern what you are allowed to do as a council and what your job really is. I also know that most people who get elected aren't experts in constitutional law or other things, and I know we take training in the sunshine law, but we don't necessarily get good coverage of the other aspects of what you would do as a council person. And the other piece of this I would ask is that you make some of this available to citizens who don't know about city operations like water treatment. And I know we do this with the police department, with the ride-along, but I'd like to see if we can expand this to other departments so that people know when we're talking about lift stations and water treatment and streets and why we can't take money from the general fund and use it in the water and sewer fund, or why we can't do the reverse. So that's really my request, and hopefully that will help us all become better citizens and better stewards of our resources.
Thank you, Mrs. Fernandez. Are there other members of the public who wish to address the council on items not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to communications and petitions. We have a couple of Municipal Code Enforcement Board lien reduction petitions. The first one involves property at 418 Ferncliff Avenue, and the Code Enforcement Board Chairman, David Pogorlich, is here to explain. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, members of council. David Pogorlich, Chairman of the Code Board. Tonight I have two lien reductions for your consideration. The first is at 418 Ferncliff Avenue. This was a result of 9 cases dating back to 2006 for a total of $211.40 in fines. At the at our November 12, 2020 meeting, it was unanimously voted on, and a motion passed to reduce the $211,040 in fines down to $447.30. I'm sorry, down to $6,350 if paid within 30 days of your approval this evening. I should also mention a couple of other things, that there was an outstanding water bill associated with this particular account in the amount of $447.32, but that has been paid as of December 8th. So all we're talking about is a lien reduction from $211,040 to $6,350 that was passed unanimously at our November 12th, 2020 board meeting. And we recommend its approval tonight.
Very good. Is the property owner or representative here to speak on this issue? I don't see anybody. Is there public, would any members of the public like to comment on this item? Seeing none, council members, do you have questions for Mr. Pogorlich or staff? Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move to approve the lien reduction.
Second.
Would you like to add language that it's payable within 30 days?
Well, I sure will.
Okay.
Let's see here. Let me
you.
pull it up here. There's a, approved a lien reduction in case number, wow. There are quite a few cases. Where do you want me to
You can
start?
just refer to the address.
Yeah, at 418 Ferncliff Avenue. to reduce the liens from $211,040 to $6,350, contingent upon receipt of payment and utility balance being paid within 30 days of council meeting, date of this evening, December 15th, 2020.
Or,
Or the fine will be
Revert.
reversed, will return to the original amount.
very good, thank you. We have amended motion. Do we have a second? Second. A motion is second. Any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No nays. We will reduce it for the 30 days according to the motion.
Thank you. The next lien reduction for your consideration is at 7523 Terrace River Drive. This is for a case originating in 2017. Fines have accumulated to $4,400. At our December 9th, 2020 Code Board meeting, a motion was made that was unanimously passed to reduce the fine from $4,400 to $545. The main reason being that there was some family medical issues involved in which delayed compliance on this particular matter, and we recommend it for approval this evening.
Very good. Is the property owner or representative here to speak on this issue? Seeing none, are there members of the public who wish to speak on this issue? Seeing none, council members, are there questions of Mr. Pogorlich or staff? Seeing none, is there a motion?
I make a motion that we reduce the fines for 7523 Terrace River Drive to $545 payable within 30 days, or it reverts to the original fine amount.
Have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No nays. We will reduce this one as well. Thank you, Mr. Pogorlich. Next item on the agenda is public hearing and second reading of Ordinance 1502, amending Chapter 2 of the Code, Police Pensions and Retirement. I'll open the public hearing. Detective Joe Anderson will provide a brief explanation. Welcome, Mr. Detective.
Welcome, Mayor, City Council members. Once again, this is the second reading. The amendment to, basically it's doing a few things. It's removing the 3-year sunset provision on the 8-year drop proposal, which allows everybody, all members of the pension, eligible members, to participate in the 8-year drop. It's adding some language to keep us in compliance with IRS code and the required minimum distribution ages, which have changed, and it addresses some rehire after retirement by the city and by the police department. And I apologize for not, I hope everybody got the actuarial statements that I emailed. Apologize for not having those at the first reading, but I know Councilmember Schisler, you had some questions about the cost, and the original cost of the 8-year drop, which had the 3-year sunset provision. Basically, it was a difference in the city contribution. It went up $2,260. And that 3-year sunset provision, only 4 members of the police department were eligible for it. Who were due to retire or reach retirement age and could make the option to go on the drop. So it just covered those 4 individuals. This new, removing the sunset, it actually increases the city's contribution by $12,556. So it's roughly $10,000 more than the other one. But it covers all 53 members of the police department. So they'd all be eligible to participate in the 3-year drop. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions you might have.
Very good. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, council members, do you have questions for Detective Anderson? Okay. If there are no questions, I'll close the public hearing. I'll ask the clerk to read the title of the ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, amending Chapter 2, Administration and Elections, Article 3, Officers and Employees, Division 3, Pensions and Retirement, Subdivision 5, Police Officers of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Temple Terrace, amending Section 2-262, Deferred Retirement Options Program, amending Section 2-279, miscellaneous, amending Section 2-281, Share Program, amending a new Section 2-282, providing for rehire after retirement, providing for severability provisions, providing for codification, repealing all ordinances or conflict in herewith, and providing an effective date.
Very good. Council, is there a motion to adopt?
To approve ordinance, 1502, amending Chapter 2 of the Code for Police Pensions and Retirement.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No nays. The ordinance is passed on second reading. Thank you, Detective.
Thank you very much.
Next item is public hearing and second reading of Ordinance 1503, adopting the comprehensive plan amendment for property located at 7032 and 7746 Temple Terrace Highway. Open the public hearing. Mark Hudson, the executive planner from Hillsborough County County Planning Commission, will provide an explanation. Welcome, Mr. Hudson.
Good evening, Mark Hudson, Planning Commission
Good to
staff.
see you.
It's good to be back before you again. It's been too long.
Yes.
I have one small-scale plan amendment to present to you tonight for your consideration and action. I see the PowerPoint's been brought up. It has been identified as TTCPA 20-03. And I'm not sure which direction that's the proper direction to point the remote. This shows you the location of the site on a map of Temple Terrace. It is basically an area that's on the fringes of the current Terrace Hills Golf Course, north of Temple Terrace Highway. And this is a little bit closer in, so you can get a better idea of the area that's been affected. The plan amendment is surrounded by the lavender dash line. It's approximately 3.5 acres. What the applicant is looking to do is to bring these lands into the lands to the north, which are currently the golf course, and redevelop the entirety as a single-family detached neighborhood. By way of a little bit of background, this is privately initiated. The applicant's agent is here today to respond to any questions you may have. It is small scale, under 10 acres, so it only requires one public hearing. We do not have to transmit it in advance up to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity. The acreage, as I mentioned, is just under 3.5 acres. And the applicant is in effect downplanning the area from commercial and public semi-public to residential 4, which allows 4 dwelling units per acre. This is the future land use map as it stands today, and you can see it's basically in 2 pods. One pod is represented by the blue, which is the public semi-public, which is currently part of Florida College. And the southern portion, or the pod that is also surrounded by the black dash line, has a commercial designation. If you choose to take action tonight, this shows you how the future land use map would change. It would be reflected of the yellow color that is residential 4, which is existing north of this site and also across 78th Street to the east as well, in those established neighborhoods. I have a few slides here just to show you the character of the area as it stands today. It is an active golf course. And this shows you some of the Florida College property to the west on Temple Terrace Highway, and also Temple Terrace Highway looking west. This shows you a park that is north of the site, and also some of the commercial uses that are south of the site or south of Temple Terrace Highway. And finally, this is the North 78th Street that is between the proposed new single-family detached neighborhood and the existing neighborhoods to the east. And this shows you both that facility looking both north and south. And this shows you the character of those neighborhoods, which this development, and I think you'll get more detail in the zoning, is looking to also have a single-family detached neighborhood at this location. So as I mentioned, this is potentially downplanning the area from its current entitlements. Right now it has almost 70,000 square feet of commercial and public semi-public entitlements, or that intensity of use. If this was approved, that would be transferred. Those entitlements would be lost, and they would gain the entitlements for 13 dwelling units. Our staff did review this for the Imagine 2040 Temple Terrace Comprehensive Plan, particularly the sections that are noted here. The full goals, objectives, and policies are in your packet, but we felt it was consistent with neighborhood conservation, community development, complete streets, citywide redevelopment strategies, and alike, as you see on this slide. I did want to pull out a couple in particular parcels that, policies that I thought were particularly appropriate for this and related to this proposal. The area in question is identified in your comprehensive plan as to be a suburban neighborhood. Of course, the requested land use is a suburban density land use category. Also, your policy 3.5.7 looks to accommodate residential land uses, particularly along multimodal corridors, and Temple Terrace Highway is a multimodal corridor. And finally, you have a housing policy that's looking to recommend a diversity of different housing types. And this, of course, is another housing type of single-family detached neighborhoods, similar to those on the other side of 78th Street. We did talk to your utilities department, and particularly your public works. There is water and wastewater capacity to serve this site. The transportation issues will be further evaluated in the zoning, which I believe you have that on your agenda tonight. School capacity, we did talk to the school district, and there is capacity for the students that would be generated by this proposed neighborhood. This was reviewed by the Planning Commission Board on September 14th, and they did find it consistent and recommend that action to you for your consideration. And finally, our staff recommends that an ordinance be approved related to this plan amendment, TTCP 2003, changing the land uses of the identified lands of 3.5 acres from public, semi-public, and commercial to residential 4. And with that, I'd be happy to stand for any questions. And again, I just note that the applicant is here also to respond to questions.
Very good. Council members, if we could hold our questions for just a moment, please. And Ms. Sheila Tyree is here to present on behalf of the applicant, I believe. Oh, here we go.
Thank you, Mark.
Welcome, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Sheila Tyree. I'm at 5904 Hampton Oaks Parkway, and I'm here to present. I believe she's got this. Thank you. So as Mark said, I have a few slides that are going to kind of go over what Mark had, just in case you have questions at the end. We can kind of refer to my slides, but I'll try to gloss over it quickly. And as Mark said, this is a small-scale comprehensive plan application. It's about a little under 3.5 acres. Oh yeah, looks like. Oh, that way. There we go. This is our project team. D.R. Horton is the applicant, and I'm with Height Design. Florida College is your owner. Tampa Civil is the engineer, and Lynx is the transportation engineer. We started this last year with staff, and we've gone through the Planning Commission, as Mark said, and they did find it consistent. And the total project is going to cover all the residential 4, and the 32 acres of that is already residential 4. So we're only looking to change just under the 3.5 acres to add that in to the residential 4 land use. And as Mark mentioned, we are in effect down planning it from the commercial and the public, semi-public, and that would be non-residential type square footage. And we're adding the 13 residential units. And there's just an aerial view similar to Mark's, just to show you again what it looks like today. And so we would be adding the 13 residential units in place of the non-residential square footage that would be allowed on that 3.5 acres today if you approved it as is shown. And then just to get into a little bit of your vision map. So the project is down there towards the bottom of the map. It's outlined in pink. And as you can see, within 1.5 miles to the east, you have a major activity center. That's kind of like the orange circle. It looks like a sun. And then the other direction, you have your central business district. That's kind of shaded in pink. You can see that to the west, and those are both within 1.5 miles of the site. And then within 3 miles of the site, you have Busch Gardens a little farther west. You've got another major activity center to the northwest, so if you kind of go up north of your central business district. And then just outside your city boundary, you have Mosey and USF. And then within 5 miles, you go a little farther northwest of USF there, you have all those major medical facilities. So there are a lot of options there for the residents to travel to work. And this is our concept plan. It's still in the process of being tweaked, so this is not final. This is just a concept. But that concludes my presentation, and I stand for any questions.
Prior to questions, are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Mrs. Rennie? Don't go far. We'll have council member questions here in just a moment. Welcome, Mrs. Rennie.
Annette Rennie, 9512 Woodland Ridge Drive. What I would like them to address tonight while we're doing the rezoning is the privacy between the conservation area, because we fought so hard to get a gated area that goes into the preserve. We do not want access or to have no fence between the homes and the preservation. We've had issues back there before when the gate's broken. The other thing is the designated right turn is needed. It's so hard between 7:30 and 8 to get the 3 subdivisions that are back there out from 78th onto Temple Terrace Highway. And Temple Terrace Highway is county. 78th Street is not. And they speed. And then you go right into a school zone for Florida College. So I want to make sure that is addressed before any decisions are made. While we welcome D.R. Horton and single-family residences, we do not welcome having the access or the ingress on 78th Street without a designated right turn and without privacy backing up to conservation. So they left the last time and said that they were going to tweak this. So I do want to hear something in relevance to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Rennie. Are there other members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Yes, sir. Welcome, sir. State your name, please, and city of residence.
William Nealon, Temple Terrace. I live at 7818 River Ridge Drive. I'm a resident of Temple Terrace. I also own businesses in Temple Terrace. I think this is a great project for the city. Tax revenue, I think it's a great addition to the neighborhoods. I live in the same neighborhood as Miss Remy. In regards to her comments, all I would recommend is just use whatever the traffic study engineers say. I drive through that intersection every day and probably 4 times a day, and there's also another access in and out of the neighborhood. So in the event that that corner was too busy, there's another exit and entrance to the neighborhood. I personally have never had any problems with that intersection, so I would just defer to the engineers. I'm no engineer, so if the engineers say it's needed, so be it. If it's not needed, then I recommend it's not needed. I'm a business owner in Temple Terrace. I work in Temple Terrace, and I think it's a great project. I think it's a good addition to the city. So thank you for your time, and I hope you approve the project.
Thank you, sir. Are there other members of the public who wish to comment on this item?
I think
I'm sorry?
Stevenson has
Mr. Stevenson.
Mr. Mayor, if there's no other public comments, I've got just a comment to make. What we're hearing this evening is a comp plan amendment, and it has nothing to do with.
I was just about to go ahead and clarify this, but anyway, I was just about to do it.
That is forthcoming here. There's some discussion, it'll be on the next agenda item, but the fencing in the preserve, traffic study, all that is done in the rezoning, and this isn't the rezoning. This is just a comp plan amendment, just for clarification.
Yeah, I wanted to clarify that. Thank you. So yes, they're okay. Very good. Are there questions for Mr. Hudson or Mrs. Tyree from the council? Council member questions? Okay, if not, I will close. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Schiss.
Trying to see how to ask the question, my reason for delay. I just want to clarify one thing. Council approval of this tonight in no way subordinates are traffic concerns. Is that what I'm hearing?
That is correct.
Okay, no problem. That answers my question. I just want to clarify that on the record so that the public can hear that too.
Right, so just for crystal clarity here, Mr. Stevenson, all of the discussion we had during the previous rezoning hearing, that's for another time, not for now.
That is for another agenda item, not
Yes.
this agenda item.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
very good.
This agenda item is changing the land use. That's all.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay. Other council member questions before I close the hearing?
Mayor, I have a
Yes,
question.
Mrs. Abel.
This might be a peripheral question, and it might go with the other one, but I was reading an article about a different golf course in New Tampa that needed to remediate the land that had formerly been a golf course. And I was wondering if there was going to be any soil testing or remediation of the land in order to, and does that have to do with the rezoning from commercial to residential? Are there requirements that have to be met in that regard?
Well, we don't discuss the rezoning tonight. This is just a comp plan amendment.
Okay.
So that might be one of those issues to talk about during the rezoning.
Got you.
All good questions, all good topics, just wrong conversation. Okay, are there other questions for staff regarding the comp plan amendment? If not, I'll close the public hearing and ask the clerk to read this title of the ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, amending the Imagine 2040 Temple Terrace Comprehensive Plan, future land use map for portions of 2 parcels of land located at 7032 and 7746 Temple Terrace Highway, consisting of approximately 3.41 acres, by changing the future land use designation on said property from commercial and public/semi-public to residential for CPA 20-03, providing for amendment to the official future land use map of the city, providing severability and effective date, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith.
Very good. Is there a motion to adopt ordinance 1503?
Yes. I move to approve the second reading, adopting the ordinance 1503, approving the comprehensive plan amendment for property located at 7032 and 7746 Temple Terrace Highway.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No nays. CPA 20-03 is approved. Mr. Hudson, would you please take back to your colleagues at the Planning Commission our wish for a happy holiday season and a healthy new year? Thank you. Good to see you. Next item is a public hearing and second reading, adopting ordinance 1503, approving the Next item on the agenda is the first public hearing and reading of an ordinance 1504, approving the zoning reclassification of 7032 and 7746 Temple Terrace Highway, RZP 2022. This item, I understand, is going to be postponed. I think Planner Celeste Lau will explain.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Item RZP 20-02 was presented to Council at the November 17th meeting. Due to some concerns from the neighbors as well as City Council, Council decided to postpone the first public hearing and reading to tonight's meeting. However, staff feels that the applicant still needs some time to address the concerns that were brought up, and therefore staff is asking Council to postpone this item tentatively to the January 19th, 2021 City Council meeting.
Okay, very good. Any objections to this postponement?
No objections.
Okay, and just for clarity, this is the meeting where the questions that Mrs. Rennie brought up and the questions that Councilmember Abel, this is the right meeting for that. And you're welcome to ask those of staff at any time. You don't have to wait for the meeting. But thank you, Mrs. Lau. Next item on the agenda is a resolution approving the change to Evolution Healthcare for employee healthcare insurance coverage. City Manager Stevenson will explain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As all of you are aware, we've been working with Advent Evolution to move forward with next year's health insurance coverage for our employees. We have in fact partnered with Advent and Evolution to provide that coverage. We are closing up with open enrollment, but the resolution in front of you is really just to memorialize the change in health insurance. We did this 3 years ago when we switched over from Florida Blue to United, and thought it would be just a necessity to just document this thing. If I can kind of outline some of the plan criteria and financial perspectives of the plan moving forward into 2021. The Evolution is offering the city really a reduction in yearly premiums and lower health costs to the employees. There's a significant difference in premiums to the city to the tune of a couple $100,000. The flex dollars will remain the same. The retirees are involved with this change, as well as the change of the insurance, and as well as the benefits that we can see from this change. The out-of-pocket cost from the plans that are being offered by Evolution are significantly lower than what we're currently paying and what we were anticipating paying from United, with a 2% increase that they were proposing for us starting January 1st. The new program, and Advent fits into this picture, in that Advent is offering their health system at an even greater reduced cost to the employees as far as out-of-pocket cost. Certainly again, with the flex dollar remaining the same that we currently have in place, and the reduced cost, it's certainly a benefit to the employees. Some of the plans that we are offering, the same 4 plans that we did last year, being a HSA program, 2 PPOs, and a HMO plan. The employees do not need to change their health care providers. If they do use Advent system, it just allows for additional savings on the out-of-pocket cost. This is again, the retirees are subject to all these changes and benefits as well. Employees have options identical to previous years with the 4 plans, but their savings in premiums range from 4% to about a 14% reduction in premium cost. The anticipated forecast, again, that we have been working off of with Mr. Painter with Evolution is forecasted to be a couple $100,000, and the stop loss remains the same as we had before with United. We have reduced our broker fees from about $78,000 to $40,000, and what we are proposing to do with that savings is to offer up employee-paid dental to the employees if, in fact, they choose our medical plan. If they're on the medical plan, they have the ability to have employer-provided dental, which is something that is new. There is a $14,000 wellness expense that's included in the program, again, identical to what we had with United last year. Advent, and this is something that has happened since the last time we spoke, and we first presented this, Advent Health is offering up a 0 copay for covered employees and dependents to use the clinic just north of City Hall. That's humongous for us, and it's certainly a benefit for the employees. There is, Mr. Schisler's been helping me engage all these discussions and kind of look at trying to find issues and resolve any outlying questions that we've had. We've really have not been able to, and certainly Advent and Evolution have been extremely responsive to getting this done, and I think helping our employees with this. I do think this is something that we have been working for the last 3 years to get to, and I think we're finally here. But we're looking for this first year to be a year to continue educating our employees on health insurance and the financial impacts of them using health insurance. For instance, going to, and I hate to call out companies, but going to Walmart to buy prescriptions instead of CVS. Using RX, good RX on an app on your phone to get better coverage or better, cheaper prescriptions. Using an urgent care or a clinic instead of an ER. All those costs run our cost up, and in the past, your big four companies look at your usage and certainly base their increases in their costs and their premiums based on our usage. So it's recommended. My recommendation is that we move forward approving this resolution to change healthcare provider from United Healthcare to Evolution Healthcare. Representatives Steve Ramsauer from Advent Tampa is here, and Robert Painter, the Senior Vice President with Evolution, are here if the council's got any questions. But I think we're pretty much set with this new program, and we're excited about it.
Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? We only have Mr. Pogorlich, you're the only one. You have anything to comment? Okay. So council member questions. But prior to questions, though, let me, we kind of have our newest council member at a bit of a disadvantage because we had a workshop on this prior to your swearing in. So you're kind of being asked to vote on something that we had the benefit of a workshop on. So, and also for the public watching, let me try to put this in a nutshell if I can. And if I goof it up, Mr. Schisler, Stevenson, you guys to help me out. We've been searching for a long time for some better program to offer our employees. We've managed to get ourselves in a position where we're very competitive in pay and benefits. However, we've been lagging in our health care expenses for the employees. Mr. Stevenson and Mr. Schisler did a fantastic job of going out. I hate to use a worn out cliche, but they're really thinking outside the box and trying to do something different. And came upon what I think is a great thing. And the nuts and bolts of it are that the city is going to become partially self-insured so that the up to a certain point of expenses, the city is going to pay the medical expenses ourselves out of our budget. If they exceed a certain amount, we have reinsurance companies that we're paying premiums to. But the premiums come at a cheaper rate because they don't kick in until you get to a higher amount. The beauty of this is that if we keep our costs under control, that money grows from year to year. It's our money. It stays in our account. And as that money grows from year to year and that account grows, we'll be able to up that limit to where the reinsurance kicks in. And as we're able to up that limit further and further, we will save in premiums and we can pass that savings on to our employees. So it puts us in a better position on day one, but every year it puts us in an even better position. And so we're really, I think, in my opinion anyway, we're starting on a strategy that, thanks to these guys for finding this and figuring this out, because I think we're going to be in a much better position in years to come. So I didn't mean to take up your time for questions, but I did want the public and our newest council member to get the benefit of some. So if you have questions, we have people here. Are there council member questions? Ms. Vice Mayor Donahue.
I do have a question. Have the employees already, what is the deadline for the employees to sign on to this? Is that coming, or is it already passed? Or
Deadline was last Friday, to my understanding. There were a couple employees and retirees that we're still working on, but I think we're in good shape to get this thing closed up. Each employee will be given a card, obviously an insurance card, just like any of the big four give you. But I think we're there. So.
Anything else, Vice Mayor?
Well,
just go. You finish.
I guess my concern is they've already signed on to the new program, so tonight we're just saying we agree. I mean, it's a done deal.
Yeah, a couple months ago we kind of presented this to council. I mean, council kind of gave us the go ahead. This is just to memorialize, in fact, what we're doing. In case you know, we went back to research the changes that we did from Florida Blue to United, and we were able to do that because we had a document that did that, so.
Mr. Mayor, I have questions.
Just, Mr. Schuster, I think, beat you to.
No, I think it's a great change, thinking outside the box. And, you know, between Mr. Stevens and Ms. Bledsoe and her staff, and all the employees that are, it's a change. Change is hard. And it's cumbersome with the number of employees or retirees that we have. But with their efforts and with Mr. Soar and Mr. Painter, with their assistance from Advent and from Evolution, it's a good start, and I think it's going to only get better for the employees. At this point, that's what we're trying to do, is give the best possible coverages and plans and healthcare management, if you will, for our employees. And I think it's a great start. And I'd like to move on the resolution.
Well,
there's no questions.
You have a placeholder.
That's right.
Councilmember Abel.
Thank you. Sorry, I am a little bit late to the game on this, but I was curious about whether the practice of self-insuring is common in cities of our size or organizations of our size, and whether, how much do the employees who are covered by this plan, I guess my question relates to like the wellness program, and how is it being incentivized for them to minimize their claims, or keep their spending to a low amount, or?
And you're directing your question to Mr. Stevenson? Or?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, let me try to answer that. I don't know that it's unusual for small cities to self-insure themselves. This is one of those things that we've never ventured into. But with the efforts that we've had in the past 3 years, again, of trying to educate our employees on usage of insurance and prescriptions, I think that we have done a tremendous job getting that in the right direction. That makes me a little bit more comfortable as your city manager to make this recommendation to move forward to this change. It certainly puts us out there liable a lot more than it did before, but it also allows us to save a lot of money. And again, before you became a council member, the previous council directed us to create an ordinance that we're working on to take that savings and create that health fund account. The savings that we do end up with in that fund, if you would, gets kicked back into the system, so that we can do things like pay down the employee deductible, for instance. I mean, there's a variety of things that we really haven't discussed. I'm just trying to build up that bank right now, and I think we can do that this coming year. That being said, when we go to spend that money, we'll bring it back to council and say, here's how we're going to allocate that money. So,
but we did ask them to draft an ordinance, which we haven't heard yet, to protect that fund so that future councils can't borrow from it, because that fund has to, the bigger that fund gets, the higher we can go with our reinsurance. The lower the premiums, the more savings we can pass on to the employees. So that fund has to grow.
Thank you for that information.
And we are, great question. We're working on that ordinance. So, okay.
Mr. Chambers.
It's not a question, it's a statement. I am a retiree, so I benefit from this. So from the city attorney, any reason I can't vote on something that's already done?
That's a good question.
You can't vote on something that's already done?
We already approved it, but yes, can I vote on this tonight?
So, yes, because we look at that 1%, so there's enough of a pool of which you are a member so that you can vote on this.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Sister.
If I may offer
Sorry,
one.
Mr. Chambers.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That was it. I just wanted to.
I may want to offer one comment. Judging based on your question, I was getting the impression that you were concerned that the employees are being asked to do more than they would under a normal total insurance scenario. And the answer to that is no, not really, except that if you have a choice to go to CVS or go to Walgreens, you juggle them, they're the same entity, but we save money by using Walgreens and that type of thing. There'll be no degradation to the level of coverage and the security, if you will, of getting the best health care that you can possibly get for our employees. We're not asking to do anything additional, just if you A, B, they're equal, and one's cheaper, use that option if we can. Okay, so I think maybe, I'm not sure if that was where you were concerned, where your concern lied, but no, there's, Evolution and Advent went to great lengths to give us a program that takes care of everybody on both sides.
Thank you, Mr. Schisler.
I have one more question.
Vice Mayor?
Is that scenario that you just pointed out, is that being managed away from here? That's not a function of our HR or somebody here, right? That's, Evolution is taking care of that. So they're managing whether our employees are making that choice. And at the end of the year, we'll say 8 employees didn't and 200 did it cheaper. Is that, I know, but we're not drilling down to who did it right, are we? Okay.
Okay. Other questions, council members?
No.
Okay, very good. Is there a motion to approve the resolution that we've kind of already done? Is there a second? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't, there weren't questions, so I didn't call on you, but would you like to?
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
Steve Ramsauer from Advent Health. I just wanted to say thank you and to let you know how very excited we are. We consider this a partnership. It's not just an insurance plan. You are our partner. And we've been your neighbor for many years, and this just strengthens that partnership, so we appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, Council. Thank you again for the partnership and trusting in Evolution Healthcare to help grow this program for you and your employees. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sister, I believe you had made a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No nays. Resolution passes. Thank you again, Mr. Stevenson, Mr. Schisler, and our new healthcare partners. Next item is a resolution awarding a contract for the Family Recreation Complex main swimming pool and deck refurbishment project. Leisure Services Director Carl Langfeld will explain. Mr. Langfeld, you've been a busy person lately.
Yes, sir, I have. But I love it. It's what I do and I enjoy it thoroughly. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. I come tonight requesting a resolution to approve a contract for the refinishing of the main swimming pool and pool deck at the family complex to Vermana in the amount of $423,212. The work that will be accomplished will be refinishing it is actually in 2 parts, and I'll explain them in each part. Part 1 is the resurfacing of the main swimming pool. The main pool, the 25-yard by 25-meter pool, is the original pool of the family complex and was constructed back in the late 70s with a Marsite finish. That Marsite finish served a useful life, and the pool was refinished in about 1990 with a epoxy type finish, which was at the time the latest, greatest, high-tech, supposed to last generations pool finish. That surface began failing within 3 to 5 years of when it was applied. There was lawsuits that flew around between the city, the manufacturers, which we ended up not prevailing in because the manufacturer went out of business. So there was no recourse for us at that time. Over the past 25 years, we have been applying Band-Aids to the main pool finish, pressure washing, painting, trying to keep that finish as appealing visually and functionally as we could. But if you ever try and paint a house with peeling paint, the paint's not going to stick. And that's where we've been at as we've been continuing to try and paint over a surface that is just failing underneath it. So we have a contractor coming in. They're going to not only be removing the remnants of the epoxy finish, but also the original Marsite finish all the way down to the original concrete shell, reapplying a new Marsite finish to it, retiling it, whole new surface to the main swimming pool, good for at least 10 years of life is what an average Marsite pool finish will last for. The second part of the project is to resurface the deck around all of the pools at the family complex. Again, going back, the pool deck was built around the main pool back in the 70s. It has been redecked one time since, and that was about 10 years ago when it was redecked. We continue to have issues with whether it is a geotechnical issue, but some movement of that deck, which causes cracking, which then causes peeling of the cool deck finish that's on it. The health department has been issuing us warnings, notices about the condition of the pool deck. We haven't been cited for it, but it has been noticed that it needs addressing. The most prudent way to address the issue with the pool deck, shy of jackhammering out the entire deck and repouring one, is just lay pavers over the top of it. So that's the direction that we're going to do, and that offers us some aesthetic options as well, where we can choose patterns and colors and things like that to do on the deck. And if there's an issue with one of the pavers, we just pop it out and put a new one in, and it's a long-term solution to solve that the issue with the underlying deck. And that, just to make sure everybody's clear, is the entire pool deck. We're not just doing a section of it and revisiting it in the future and doing another section. We're getting the entire pool deck done. We have a fairly tight window to get this job done. Obviously, we don't want to be refinishing the pool in the middle of July, which is why we're here at this point in the year, getting the contractor in. Hopefully at some point in January. They have about an 8-week construction time that they say they can get the job done, and we'll be ready to go, opening the pool up with a new finish and a new deck in time for spring and summer. I stand for any questions you may have.
Prior to questions, are there members of the public who wish to comment on this? The one member of the public? I have a question. Carl, if you could clarify for me, I actually, the city manager and I had a discussion about this today. In the backup material we got, the repaving area looks like it's just the deck around the main pool. And my question to the city manager was, are we doing just that?
We are doing the entire pool deck.
Okay, so
around all of the pools.
So the black line around that diagram is not.
That is not indicative of what is being resurfaced.
Okay,
That might have been, they might have had to do that as part of the work border for what they're doing in the pool, but that is not indicative of what we're doing with the pool.
Okay, but we're doing all 5 pools.
We're doing around every pool out there, the entire.
Good. Well, that was a conversation I had today. So
It's going to be cooler to the feet.
Depending on colors. Obviously, we're not going to do it in black, but the product that's on it now is is called Cool Deck, and it's supposed to dissipate heat and be cooled to the feet when you walk on it. This will not be that Cool Deck type of surface. They will be concrete pavers. We will obviously do them in light colors to minimize any type of heat retention that the deck may have, but with any type of concrete surface that you have out in the Florida sun, it is going to warm up a bit in the summer.
I'm aware, for the hot stepping from one pool to the other. Well, I just want to say, you had me at $423,212 have been allocated in account 1601830572632, meaning that we said, yes, go forth, young man, and do this job. So I'm ready to make a motion to
let
approve.
me make sure that we have exhausted all the council member questions. Do we have other questions, council members? Okay, Vice Mayor, you're up.
I move to approve the expenditure of $423,212 to be as allocated in account 1601830572632.63-27 to paint and repair the pool, the main pool.
The motion, do we have a second? Mr. Chambers, second? We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No nays. Resolution passes. Thank you, Carl.
Thank you
And
very much.
while you're here, I want to say, I know you and your staff have been busy with all the golf cart parade, which I'm sure I'm not the only council member who got tons of good feedback from the public on that. People have stopped me, they've commented about it. The movie nights, I mean, it was wonderful. So you guys continue to do a great job, and it's well appreciated.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that very much. I will pass that along to my staff.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is a resolution approving the first modification of the CDBG interlocal funding agreement with Hillsborough County for 2019-2020. Finance Director Lynn Boswell will explain.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members. It seems like we do amendments after we finalize. We actually passed this original CDBG interlocal governmental agreement in January of this year, 2020, and then didn't know what was going to happen. As a result of our COVID pandemic and the slowdown in work, they are giving us this modification specific to give us time to get our projects done. So this amendment is this first modification is going to carry us through July of 2021. I just spoke with Troy, and we should be done with all of our projects from CDBG last year, this year, whichever year's left, by this summer, by the end of the summer. And this is all that this does, is grant us time to do it, because the last interlocal governmental agreement said we needed to be done by this past August. I stand for questions.
Very good. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Council members, questions for Ms. Boswell?
Did they fine us at all monetarily, or did they just, because of the situation? That's wonderful. Okay, that's good to know.
Other questions, Finance Director? Okay, if there are no other questions, is there a motion to approve the?
Move to approve the resolution approving first modification of CDBG interlocal fund agreement.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? If none, all those in favor signify with aye.
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 Any opposed? No nays. The resolution is passed. Thank you, Mrs. Boswell. Next item is a resolution approving the purchase of a Dell storage array for the expenditure of special law enforcement trust funds. Police Chief Ken Albano will explain.
Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. Ken Albano, your police chief. Before you this evening, for your review and consideration, is a resolution approving the purchase of Dell MEC ME4012 storage array and the expenditure of special law enforcement trust funds. Now, it's almost the end of the agenda, but this is a lengthy one, and it's got 4 different accounts, and it's got an explanation involved. So if you'll forgive me, I'm going to stick to the script, if you will, and read most of it so that we get it all read into the record appropriately. So you approved the purchase of our WatchGuard body-worn cameras. That purchase and the deployment of those body-worn cameras placed an extreme high volume, unanticipated, on our existing server. And what that did is basically cause that server recently to crash. Now, our IT director, and working with the IT people with WatchGuard, they looked at the problem. Our IT director got us up and running with a temporary solution, but our existing server will not hold up. It cannot handle the volume. We're getting great video, we're getting tremendous video, but it simply cannot handle the volume that we are producing. So our IT director, working with WatchGuard, as I said, have come up with a solution. And that solution is the purchase of the Dell EMC ME4012 storage array at a price of $28,907.08. That has been recommended by Sally. If approved by City Council, this purchase will be made from VTech IO under Florida State Contract Number 43211-500-WSCA-15-ACS and contract code WN08AGW/C000000010,853. $18,907.08 from account number 160-1411-521-6423 will be expended toward the purchase of the storage array, utilizing funds currently budgeted within the department's fiscal year 2021 Community Investment Tax, CIT, expenditures. The remaining $10,000 for that purchase toward the service array, storage array, will be made from forfeiture funds. In general, as you are aware, forfeiture funds are revenues arising from law enforcement investigations where contraband is recovered or when other proceeds of criminal activity are forfeited. These proceeds may only be used for law enforcement purposes that meet statutory restrictions and are requested by the police chief and are ultimately approved by City Council. So, at this point, you're probably asking, well, we have money left to pay this portion of it out of forfeiture, and we're asking for other forfeiture expenditures to be approved. Well, why aren't we just using those dollars toward this purchase? Well, back in August of last year, when I came before you, I explained that the forfeiture that led to us having this money available, some $329,961, 25% of that has got to, by statute 932.70555C3, be held in reserve for expenditures only related to drug abuse education, drug prevention, crime prevention, safe neighborhoods, school resource officer programs. So the bulk of the remaining funds are earmarked for that and held in reserve. I can only come before you and seek to expend those for those purposes, so they are not available for this purchase array. I mean, for the purchase of the storage array. So with that said, and in accordance with Florida Contraband Forfeiture Act, the following forfeiture expenditures are also recommended tonight. $10,000 toward the previously mentioned storage array to be utilized in support of the police department's watch guard, body worn, and in-car video programs. Payment to be made from 001-141-521.6423 under project code POLFOR. $3,450 toward crime prevention programs and promotional items, including but not limited to Coffee with the Cop, Citizens Police Academy, National Night Out, and the purchase of various crime prevention promotional educational materials. Payment to be made from account 001-1433-521.48-41 under project code POLFOR. A donation of $15,000 to the Boys and Girls Club of Tampa Bay in support of the Sam and Maurice Hashem Temple Terrace Boys and Girls Club. Donation to be made from account number 001-1411-521.82-20 under project code POLFOR. All of the foregoing forfeiture expenditures, collectively totaling $28,450, comply with the statutory requirements of the Florida Contraband Forfeiture Act, and upon receiving council's approval, will be utilized toward the aforementioned purchases and donation in accordance with the city's established procedures. The total cost as a result of the aforementioned expenditures, inclusive of both forfeiture and CIT dollars, is $47,357.08. Upon the expenditure of the above listed forfeiture funds, a balance of $49,594.94 will still need to be expended or donated in accordance with the statute that I just shared, in accordance with those specific purpose areas that I mentioned to you before. So I'll still be coming back next year, or maybe even during this year, if necessary, to be able to ask permission to use some of those funds. In testament, I always have to complete a certification, if you will, of the expenditures meeting those requirements, and that is attached with the packet. So it is recommended that City Council adopt a resolution approving the expenditures as presented, and I will stand for questions.
There are members of the public who wish to comment on this item?
Yes. I stopped paying attention after he said it on follow the script.
No. Well, I have a couple questions, Chief.
Go ahead.
One is, so the remaining 49,000 and change that's in the forfeiture account, we're down to the point where all of that money has to go towards drug prevention?
Yes, sir. That entire sum is.
So we can't, whatever we've spent on other stuff is done. We've reached that threshold of
Yes, sir.
So this has all got to be towards, okay.
We spent a large chunk of that on the body-worn cameras themselves. You approved that for us last.
Okay, well, that leads to my next question is, how did our vendor underestimate the storage necessary for these cameras? I mean, aren't there predictable metrics? You have X number of cameras, 24 hours a day. I mean, how did we get 2 months into this and find out that we don't have enough storage? How could that not have been seen?
Well, I'm not the IT director, and maybe she could add some to it, but basically the servers that we have, this particular one is older, and we have our existing WatchGuard in-car videos already running, and it's just the amount of, I guess it's kind of difficult for the vendor to be able to with any kind of accuracy, other than just spitballing it, know how often, what our policies are going to be, how much video is going to come in on a daily basis. Until we really started working it, I don't know that they could answer that question specifically for the agency. The technical side, Sally could probably speak to the nuts and bolts of it, but the servers, I think it's a series of them that we'll have working in conjunction with one another, will basically surpass that right now, the storage capacity that the entire city has. That's the volume of the.
Well, but that's my point, is how could they not have seen, oh, you guys only have 6 terabytes of available space. There's no way all this footage is going to fit on that. How could they not see that? And the more important question is, how are we got enough space now moving forward, or are we going to run into this problem again?
Again, the technical side Sally can speak to, but I believe we have 106 terabytes of storage. Yeah, I cannot, again, I'm not an IT guy, but I cannot imagine running out of that. Again, that's more storage than the entire city.
I know, but we send people to the moon with a fraction of what I got on my
right.
cell
Well,
phone.
I agree with you. I would say no. Sally has looked at it. They've looked at everything. They looked at the volume. Now we've had some data coming in for a few months. They've seen what it is, and I think between the two of them have come up with a solution that is going to be more than adequate for our needs. And I don't anticipate having to be back before you asking for any additional storage.
Other council member questions, Mr. Sister?
Yeah, is this a live feed or is this a download at the end of the day?
Download at the end of the day.
And how many cameras on average per day?
Well, all of our patrol officers, which are between.
So there'd be 50 cameras a day?
Well, no, because they wouldn't all be running. So it's more or less going to be 8 to 10, unless detectives are out using theirs and they also have them. Everybody has them operational other than administration, which is only 4 of us. So you got 8 to 10 in patrol and another 6 detectives. So you could have somewhere upwards of 15, 18 running a day, every day, night and day, because night shift comes in as well. So you add another 8 to that.
Mr. Mayor, that's a very valid question, but I remember way back when I got my first hard drive. It was a 20 megabyte hard drive, and I did put Stacker on. I had 40. I said, I will never fill this thing. I use 2 terabytes at home, so I expect you to probably come back sooner than later.
Yeah, my point was the vendor, though. I mean, they sell the cameras, they should know. You have 53 officers.
Yeah.
This is about how much, I mean, this isn't the first department that's gone to these, so anyway. Other council member questions? Councilmember Abel.
I was wondering, are there requirements, and if so, what are the requirements for how long the footage needs to be stored?
It really depends upon what the footage is. As a base number, 90 days for all the video. Now, if it's evidentiary, especially if it's evidentiary on a major case, well, then that extends to years.
Follow up, would it be possible to have a cycle of getting rid of stuff that's not evidentiary or past the 90-day window?
We have a cycle of that. We hired the council last year, actually. They also approved a new digital evidence technician. That's his, amongst other things, his job. very, very sharp guy, came to us from New Jersey, I believe it was. This is what he was doing in an investigative capacity, so he brings that knowledge. He addresses it every day. The general orders we put into place already anticipate what you're speaking of. We get rid of everything we can as soon as we can. It's already in place.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Other questions? Very good, Chief. Thank you very much. Is there
Approve the resolution for the acquisition of the additional server.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No nays. Resolution passes. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Next item on the agenda is a resolution approving an agreement with Spectrum Enterprise for Internet and Communications Service. IT Director Sally Cabrera will explain. Welcome.
Hello, Mayor and City Council. Sally Cabrera, IT Director, City of Temple Terrace. We are seeking approval for a 36-month agreement with Spectrum Enterprises to increase the bandwidth at all city locations. The city has 8 municipal buildings currently linked with a mixture of technologies to provide staff with computer, network, telephone, and internet access. With the significant growth of the city's utilization of our technology and telecommunications demands, the city's infrastructure has remained mostly unchanged for 5 years. Consequently, the burden of the current limited bandwidth and unreliable connectivity does not allow the city to take full advantage of today's technologies, internet capabilities, and video conferencing. The upgraded equipment will be able to meet all of the city's potential needs for improved bandwidth. The agreement with Spectrum is for a total of 3 years at a cost of $16,165.74 per month, and will upgrade all current services. Funding will come from account number 001-1121-513-41-15. Any questions?
Thank you, Mrs. Cabrera. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, council members, are there questions for Mrs. Cabrera? Mr. Stevenson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could just kind of add something to what Sally has offered up for discussion here. This is about a $20,000 a year increase that is unbudgeted. We do not have these funds in our current budget. That increase is about $1,600 a month. But the bandwidth that we're dealing with right now is about 50 megabits per second. This will get us up to about 500. So it's a significant increase. And with all the virtual stuff that we're doing and all the online stuff and communications, it's awful difficult. But I just want you to understand that this $16,000 is an increase of $20,000 a year that is not in this year's budget. We'll certainly make accommodations next year when we do that to include this $16,000 a month budget. So, thank you.
So where do you anticipate getting the additional $20,000?
This additional $20,000 will have to come out of general fund reserve. We'll have to do a budget adjustment that we'll bring back to council.
Okay.
Yeah, that was going to be my question as well, as I didn't see those magic words that says, approved. Are they just hitting us with this now, or was this something that we didn't anticipate, or we just started to fail? And
We've been working on this since the spring. Continually noticing problems with bandwidth. And especially with the COVID, it's really taken notice because of all the virtual meetings that have taken place and all the items that are done online now. We have really begun to notice a huge, huge problem.
Yeah. Well, it sounds to me like we have to do it. I think we're going to have to make a notation for all of us to remember that we can't, we can't ding at this fund all that often. So this is a big ding. And make a mental note that we've already gone to this well for $20,000. So I think you have to do it. I can understand why you had to do it. I kept looking for that phrase that gave me comfort, and it wasn't there. So thank you for bringing that up, because that was my question. So, thank you.
Just for clarification, the previous resolution, the $18,000, that was in the budget. We found that in your budget? That $18,000 that we just spent for the,
That $18,000 was a line item that we used in CIT, yes.
okay, that wasn't another dip.
Coordinate that 28,000 with an additional 10,000 from the forfeiture funds.
Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure that that wasn't another dip into.
No.
Okay.
No, we're good with
Okay.
that.
Other council member questions? Okay. I wish we weren't here, but I mean, I get it, but I sure hate to dip into that for 20 grand. So maybe we'll wind up saving money on something else.
We will.
Yeah. Okay, is there a motion to approve the agreement with Spectrum Enterprise?
I move to approve the resolution approving an agreement with Spectrum Enterprise for internet and communication service.
We have a motion. Motion and Mr. Schisler second? Okay, is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No nays. Resolution is passed. Thank you, Ms. Cabrera. Any carryover council business from previous meetings? Probably not. Okay. New business. Before we get to the selection of the vice mayor, I think we have a couple things I'd like to get out of the way before we do that. Mr. Schisler, you had something, I think?
Got a couple quick board reports. Hart is in the process of finalizing the contract with the new CEO. She should start on or around the first of the year. As soon as she can figure out where Temple Terrace is, we'll bring her out here so she can meet with council and the city manager and staff so that we can impress upon her our concerns and the things that we're looking for in our area. In addition to that, for those that you do not know or haven't heard, Hart did receive a $67 million grant from FDOT and the feds for streetcar extension. Keep in mind, we still need to match that, so it's not a done deal yet. A lot of that's going to be held up with the sales tax. However, if it does come to fruition, it'll extend the streetcar service to Tampa Heights, East Tampa, and ultimately potentially Mosey. But we're talking like 2040 before it's anything in that range. With the school support committee, we wanted to get out to all the teachers that may be listening that the grants are being solicited from the schools, our grant program, to support both brick and mortar and e-learning projects. So you'll hear from the representatives from the school support committee shortly, and we'll be bringing that back to council sometime in February. And for anybody who's listening, who's interested, there is an open position with Meredith ascending to the DS. There'll be an opening on the school support committee, and please let Cheryl know if you're interested, and we'll bring you forward. I was recently appointed to the Career Source of Tampa Bay Board of Directors, and there really is, it's quite an interesting organization. They do a lot of work with promoting employment and so forth in Hillsborough County, and to that end, they have been promoting several online job fairs, to which I want to say thank you to Lori for helping to spread the word on that, because it can help many of our residents in the area. One particular was the Haley Veterans Hospital Job Fair, and today was announced for the Super Bowl Job Fair for their temporary positions, but you know, they're trying to help everybody that they can, particularly with COVID-19 relief and recovery with retraining and whatever. They have a lot of programs that benefit local businesses, and local businesses can participate. One near and dear to our hearts is Fuzzy's Tacos. They have training support, and they're actually giving grants to businesses to help them to train future employees. So it is a good organization, and they're very, very busy. Last but not least is the Temple Terrace Golf and Country Club SACS Strategic Advisory Committee. Just to bring everybody up to speed as far as the irrigation project goes, it's on track. They're working on number 11 now, and they're going backwards, so they'll finish up on 10. And I believe that'll about do it, won't it?
It'll be done.
That'll be finished.
They're on 10 now.
Yeah, they're on, because they started on 10. So it's getting there. It's going to take some time for the sod to come back, the turf to come back. But between that and a lot of help from Swift Mud financially and from the city, obviously. There's still, the monies from, some of the money, or at least a bulk of the money from Swift Mud has been received. There's a slight issue of running it through the city so the city can close their books. We're working on that with everybody, all the parties concerned. But Mr. Stevenson has that in hand. Although there's been some concern and discussion about the tree mitigation project. I audited the course with Joe Ferris. We went hole by hole with their list of trees that are going to be cut down. And by and large, they were pretty close. There are a couple trees that they took down, which they hadn't said they were going to do. But the course had a reason for it. Just wish they had talked to Joe first. But we've talked, and they won't do that again. Tree replacement program is a work in progress. It'll be done during the spring and summer. And the debris removal, I think we still have a couple people complaining about that. I've heard that it's going to be completed shortly, and we'll see what happens. Financially, they're still being impacted by COVID-19. It's going to take a while. That's discretionary funds that will for their food and beverage, which is going to take a while for it to come back. But they're doing their best to hold their own, and I don't believe it's going to be a problem for the city in the near term, at least. So that's and I'll stop there.
Good, thank you. Other new business or board reports?
I do have a question.
Vice Mayor.
A couple of weeks ago, we got a question about legislative agendas and things like that. Is that coming up tonight?
Yeah, I'm going to discuss that in a
Okay.
minute.
Okay, because I'm meeting with Andrew Learned this week, so I'd like to.
Okay, no, I'm going to talk about that in just a
Okay,
second. If you,
good. All right.
I don't mean to cut you off.
That's
but
okay. I'm
it's on
glad
my
to know.
list here, so.
Good.
Other new business, board reports? Okay, I have a couple quick things. First of all, I bring you all greetings from Mayor Rick Lott and the City Commission in Plant City. I was at their meeting last night, and they said very nice things about Temple Terrace and talked about how, there's only 3 cities in the county, and Temple Terrace and Plant City, we really look out for each other, and so they asked me to send greetings your way. The second thing is I need some guidance from my colleagues here on legislative priorities. I put some email out to you. Of course, you can't reply to it. I've spoken with the city manager. I've spoken with our lobbyist. I don't think it'll come as a shock to anybody that money at the state level is going to be very, very difficult. So our funding, things that we would ask for normally to be funded at the state level, it's not going to happen. We are going to put in, again, for the funding we need for our new EOC/police station. We have very little hopes that that's going to be funded, but there's value in putting that in anyway, because we can then say we've been putting in, right? So most of what I think the best we can hope for this year are policy type of amendments. A couple of things I gather we have some consensus already on that I just want to make sure, because I need to know whether we need to have a workshop or not, and I'm kind of sensing that we don't, but I don't know that for sure. So I think we're all agreed on that we need to continue to beat the drum on the short-term rentals. Is that the state preemption on short-term rentals? We want to hope to address the state preemption on the tree trimming and removal preemption. Is that okay with everybody? We, our city attorney brought forth, there's some legislation that we'd like to, there's proposed legislation we'd like to lend our support to concerning some enhancements to what we can do about derelict vessels that are left on waterways. Anybody opposed to that? Do we need to have a discussion about this? And then of course the Florida League of Cities is advancing their own agenda, but we've already had that discussion some time ago. So I don't think, I'm not sensing that we need to have a workshop, because I haven't heard anybody really talking about anything different, but that's up to you.
The only thing that I would like for us to weigh in on is that we are one of 4, maybe, states who are not collecting sales tax from online sales. And the year that we need to do this is 10 years ago, but this is the year that, you know, everybody's buying online, the state is hurting, and no one's paying sales tax on Amazon products or whatever, anybody. So, well, you are paying some, but you are not paying like you would. If I order from, maybe Amazon's different, but if I order from, there are certain ones that because I'm in Florida, I don't pay the sales tax.
If they have a location in Florida, you
They
have
have a location in Florida.
If they don't, then you, yeah.
Correct. And then the state has a ruling that you and I are supposed to, on the honor system, mail in our sales tax. Don't raise your hand if you've ever done it, okay, because I'll make you a liar by asking you to do that. So anyway, Florida League of Cities is championing this.
Yeah, that's one of their,
That's one of theirs. But I think it behooves us to weigh in on that because it affects our local businesses. You know, we have some small businesses here that are definitely affected. And eventually, whether it has a direct impact on us or not in our businesses, it has a direct impact on the monies collected by the state, which then they fund other things. So if we can just add that to the list that says we're in agreement that this is an issue.
well, if I might respond to that, I know that that's an FLC priority. I'm not sure that we're going to get unanimous. I mean, I know you're not going to get unanimous. I read that in FLC, but there's two sides to that coin, and we could have that discussion if you want to have a workshop. But and if the majority of the council outvotes me, but there's two sides to that. That's not as cut and dry as, in my opinion.
We're definitely in the minority.
No, you're right about that. So I'm not trying to cut you off. I'm just trying to say, if you want to if you want to put that to the council, but
Well, you know what, where it comes to Florida League of Cities, their goal is to look at us and whether or not a bill actually affects every city is not the issue. It's home rule. And all the things we've talked about are about home rule. So we're on safe territory with all of those. The tree ordinance, the short-term rentals, the waterways, because, you know, when we didn't create an ordinance for short-term rentals because it wasn't a problem, we missed our opportunity. So I'm glad that she's bringing this to us because now we're thinking, we don't have a problem, but let's get it underway. Let's make sure we don't have a problem when we do become a parking lot for abandoned boats, right? Isn't that what you're basically, yeah. So I'm okay with that not being one of our agenda items. I am going to continue looking at it, and I will bring back more information about the sales tax because that is something that is definitely coming back this year in several bills. There's several bills out there already looking at that because they're looking for revenue. You know, they're looking for revenue source. So I think as long as we focus on home rule issues, like we've already said, tree ordinance, but I agree wholeheartedly that we need to keep asking for the money for the police station. You know, I've been told that we could ask for money for a courthouse and that there's a special fund for that. Well, we don't want a courthouse. We want a police station. So I don't know if there's a way to ask them to tap into that. It's not necessary for us to have a courthouse. So when a police station is what we need.
I don't want to dismiss your, did you want to have a workshop to discuss the sales tax issue?
No, I think as it rolls out and as the bills actually roll out, I will bring it back and we can decide if we want to weigh in or not.
Okay.
However, if I may, I think that bears consideration, the sales tax fairness situation. I think that we should sit down and discuss that as a legislative priority.
Okay, so are we having a workshop well, we can cut this short. Am I the only one that, because you guys can outvote me right now. Now, I'm not talking about your ability to one-on-one. I'm talking about us as a city asking our paid lobbyists to advocate for this. because I'm not in favor of it for a lot of reasons that I don't want to drag the meeting out tonight to go. But I'm not going to advocate, gee, let's raise our taxes. I mean, I don't want to do that. I think that's going to close anyway. I think you're right. I see the train coming, but I don't really want to be the one pushing the train. That's just me. Am I the only? You guys want to have a workshop to do this, or?
I don't know if we need a workshop. I support the sales tax initiative, but also I'm not sure. I also support all the Florida League home rule items, and I think that's what I would like to concentrate on.
Well, we already agreed to that.
We did.
We're just having, but I can tell you that our legislative delegation includes Lawrence McClure and Danny Burgess. They're not going to push for sales tax. I can, but I see three people who, so, all right, so I guess that's one of our priorities now.
I think it just needs to be something we need to pay attention to. I don't know that if what you're asking me is if we're telling our lobbyists.
That's what I'm trying to get this council as a body to agree on what we're going to advocate.
Then let me ask this. As a body affecting us right now, the home rule issues are paramount because we know what it's done to us already. Okay, so he needs to focus on that and the request for the police department.
Well, those we agree upon, those four things.
What I would like for us to do is to look at this down the road as the bills are being introduced, to see if we can weigh in. Sometimes it's just a matter of the city of Temple Terrace sends a letter that says, we as a council, it doesn't require our lobbyists, it requires us. Because they want to hear from us, what is this doing to your businesses? What is it doing? Just like with the short-term rental, they advised us, tell them what it's doing to your neighborhood. Don't just say we're against this because it's home rule incursion. Say, we have neighbors who are having pool parties at whatever, or whatever the issue is. Bring it to your own. So I guess that's really what I'm asking.
Okay.
Is that so that we pretty much can have our cake and eat it too here. We can get our delegate to go after the things that we know are, and then as this bill unravels, because it hasn't even been filed yet.
Well, right. Okay. Fair enough. I think we can have a good platform for moving forward. And if there is a bill to this effect, then we can certainly, as a council, have a discussion about whether we want to, as a city, support that bill or not. So, yes, Mr.
I agree that's a prudent approach. We have our home rule issues that are substantive and they directly affect us. The sales tax issue, while we're hypocrites if we don't say we're not concerned about it, because come March and April, we're going to be beating the bushes and turning over every rock to supplement whatever we lose with decreased property values or residential, commercial inability to pay. So, at the risk of sounding hypocritical, I don't want us to go after the sales tax issue. As a unit, we have other home rule issues that are more tangible to us that we can probably affect better than ruling on the sales tax. However, I'm against the sales tax for the online from a philosophical perspective. So I think that Ms. Donahue's approach, and when this comes up, we'll bring it back, and then we can decide how we want to approach it. I think that's an effective way to move forward. But it gives our advocate, our lobby people, a clear, concise picture. This, and go after these for us, and that's what we're paying them for. So I think that's a good approach.
Okay. Fair enough? We're all good? Okay. And the last thing I need the council's approval for, if you agree, is I think I mentioned to you before that there's a resolution passed in, I can't remember the year, 1998, I think it was, 96, something like that, that says in the resolution that the vice mayor will be elected the first Tuesday following the first Monday in November, which is election day. We don't even meet anymore. So I would, with your permission, like to direct staff, would you give me permission to meet with our attorney and figure out some language that makes sense, because not every year is an election year, and then maybe bring it back to you for consideration?
Quick question.
Sure.
Is it listed under, where's it listed in the charter?
It doesn't
Or is it
address the time in the charter. The only thing that talks about when the election will occur is in the resolution.
Okay, all right, yeah,
Yeah, the charter doesn't say when. So that would solve it.
then we could fix that, yeah.
Yeah, there wouldn't.
Okay.
This is just and it wasn't even a written resolution, it was a verbal motion. So, if that's okay with you guys, I mean, I'm not gonna pass anything without your approval, but I'd like to work with the attorney to, okay, all right. And that's all I needed. Is there any other new business or board reports? Okay, very good. Moving on to the selection of vice mayor. Let me explain first. The vice mayor position is filled on a progressive rotation by seniority. Council members who have served a minimum of 2 years are eligible to serve as vice mayor. In the absence of the mayor, the vice mayor shall take the chair at the appointed meeting hour and immediately call the members to order per resolution 9688. It's 96. That's the resolution I was just talking about. Pursuant to Rule 6 of the Council Rules and Order of Procedures, now council members should elect a vice mayor for a one-year term of office. Council members who are currently eligible to serve as vice mayor are council members Chambers, Donahue, and Schisler. So we had some discussion between the clerk and the attorney and I about how this would happen. It's easy if we get one nomination, simple, we take a vote. But there may be more than one. So if there's more than one nomination, the person has to accept the nomination, and then we will hold individual roll call votes on each person nominated so that the clerk can keep track. So that's what we're planning. And so I'll open the nominations. I would like to nominate our acting vice mayor, Sherry Donahue, to fill the role as vice mayor on a non-acting capacity.
Second.
Do you accept the nomination?
I do.
Okay. Other nominations for vice mayor? Ms. Abel, you're the only one not yet eligible, but everybody else is. So, and you can nominate.
I'm good with the current nomination, thank you.
Okay. Other nominations? Going once, going twice? Okay, I'm here closing the nominations. All those in favor of Vice Mayor Donahue? You got to vote. Is that your vote?
My vote, yes.
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 Congratulations. I look forward to you working with you.
Thank you for the nomination and for the election.
All right, city manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I got just a couple of announcements and really just a very brief presentation. Mr. Langfeld has heard from Dale McClellan out at M&B Products. There has been a decision for next February to cancel farm night. Just with the uncertainty of what we're dealing with and the amount of time they needed in order to do planning, it's a little difficult to start doing that. So that event will be canceled for 21. They are showing some interest, obviously, in picking it up in 22. So real quick, and then I've asked Chief Kemp and our medical director, Brooke Shepard, to attend our meeting and kind of give us just a briefing, if you would, on what they perceive as this vaccine that's coming out and how this gets distributed. I had placed in front of you an agreement that Hillsborough County had requested out of our medical director, and certainly through the efforts of support, if you would, with the Temple Terrace Fire Department in the event that we get into doing vaccinations on a local level like that. But there's a lot of I don't want to say misinformation going out there, but it all depends on who you're listening to and who's going to get this and where it's coming from. Ms. Shepard, obviously, with her medical ties to the hospital situation, we're looking for some kind of just general information to kind of share with council. So with that, Chief Kemp, floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Honorable Mayor, Council, Ian Kemp, your Fire Chief. First, what I'd like to say is I want to thank my staff and all the city directors, and of course the medical director for and the city manager's support, and everyone's up there. And I know the mayor and three of us have met many a times and have discussed what we've been doing over the last 10 months. And we've been working hard. We've been working hard for you. We've been working hard for all the city employees, some that have contracted COVID, some that have unfortunately been exposed. And we have a spreadsheet, and Joe Cable, one of our captains, has worked diligently. We receive phone calls, at least one, probably multiple a day. And I'm continuously working on the city's behalf and the employees and also the citizens to maintain some type of civility and certain documentation for COVID and ongoing. And obviously we're not at the end of this, and we're probably not even close. But one of the things that we are coming up to very closely is being able to start receiving some of the vaccinations. So I think everybody here has met Dr. Shepard, who I highly regard and is very highly regarded in the community that she works with. And I don't know if Councilmember Abel has of yet. So without any further ado, I'd really like to bring the medical director up. She's going to describe some of the things that she's been seeing, some of the things that we've been doing, and what she anticipates how we're going to roll out here in the city and the county some of these shots. So Dr. Shepard.
Welcome, Dr. Shepard.
Oh,
It's
thank you.
twice in about a week. It's good to see you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me. My name's Dr. Brooke Shepard. I am a resident here in Temple Terrace. And I first want to thank all of you and everyone in this room and all of the city employees for everything you've done in the last 10 months. I know this has been an incredibly challenging time, but you've shown resilience and flexibility and fortitude, and we've still been able to provide our services to the city, and I really appreciate your work. As far as the vaccine, as a physician who's been caring for these patients over the past 10 months, I can tell you that since the announcement of the Pfizer vaccine being approved by the FDA and the rollout that's already started, this week for me has been a very hopeful week. It's the first time in 10 months that I have felt true hope that we're moving forward in this pandemic. I am getting the vaccination on Thursday. My husband, who's a paramedic firefighter for Hillsborough County, will be getting the vaccination as soon as it's available to him, and I will be vaccinating my children in the spring when it's available to them. This vaccine is our ticket to getting through this as quickly and safely as possible. Without a vaccine, we have 2 to 3 more years of masks. We have 2 to 3 more years of social distancing and dealing with the mortality, the deaths, and the disability that this virus has caused across our world, really. With the vaccine, we have the hope of being able to take off our masks, go do things that we used to do pre-COVID, get out with our family and friends in a much quicker fashion. And we're also going to reduce the number of people that die from this illness. Without a vaccine, we would expect another 1 to 2 million deaths in this country alone over the next 2 to 3 years. But with a vaccine, we can try to get this under control, hopefully by middle to the end of 2021. That being said, now we have to get the vaccine to people, and that's the rollout part of this. And I'm going to tell you tonight what I know, but I also know that everything's changing every day. We are getting updates multiple times a week about how this is going to roll out across the state and locally. Chief Kemp and I have been participating in meetings, and we have another one tomorrow where we'll get even more up-to-date information. With this rollout, we all need to be patient with this process, okay? I cannot imagine the logistical operation that this is on a national level. Nothing like this has ever been done before. And we need to be patient with the process and understand the process is not going to be without hiccups. Along the way, things are going to happen with the process part of it, and we need to just be patient with that and understanding that decisions are being made for reasons that we may not understand, but they're being made for good reasons. With that, the CDC came out with some guidelines on how we should tier the vaccination, who should get it first and in what order. And then they left it up to the states to decide how every state would do that. because every state's different. So in the state of Florida, we have a couple tiered process. In the first phase, which actually started Monday, when the Pfizer vaccine arrived at Tampa General and 5 hospitals throughout the state, we started vaccinating some of our highest risk individuals, our frontline healthcare workers at those 5 hospitals. That will continue a rollout on Baycare, which is the hospital system I'm affiliated with. We were notified today that we will start getting the vaccine on Thursday, and I'm signed up for the first round on Thursday morning to get my first vaccine. So that is the initial group that will get it, our high-risk, healthcare workers who are taking care of COVID patients every day, and not only are they at risk for the disease, but they're at risk for giving it to other people, and including patients. Then we have in this priority group also, we have long-term care residents and the staff members who take care of them. The reason that decision was made to vaccinate them in round 1 is because 40 to 50% of the deaths from COVID have been in that patient population. If we want to reduce the deaths from COVID, we need to get to that patient population first. Broward County and Pinellas County will be rolling out 21,000 vaccinations this week alone, the Pfizer vaccine. They're using EMS task force, the National Guard, and other resources to get the vaccine out. And then very soon after, CVS and Walgreens, who've signed a contract with the government to help vaccinate long-term care facilities, will start rolling it out across the state. Other priority groups are going to be, of course, fire rescue. And we anticipate, I'm hopeful that our fire rescue personnel will have the option of getting the vaccine, their first dose, by the end of the month. We have not been notified yet when that will be rolled out for our local county. We're hoping tomorrow to get some answers on our phone call. The priority 2 group are going to be our critical infrastructure workers, and we expect this to start probably about February. So this is going to be public works, transportation, education, law enforcement, and hopefully they'll start to get the vaccine should they choose to do so at that time. They'll also start including more vulnerable populations, okay? If you'll bear with me, in round 1, I forgot a group, a very important group, 65 and older, and those with underlying health conditions that make them at risk for complications and death from COVID. What are those underlying health conditions? I don't have the list, but I would suspect, based on what I know about this virus and what we've been dealing with in the hospital, is that it'll be obesity, heart disease, diabetes, end-stage renal disease, and other immune-compromising conditions. Those patients will be offered the vaccine very early on. Then in round 3, phase 3 of this on the state level, which should be about April-May timeframe, we'll start rolling it out to the general population. And hopefully by the middle of the summer, at the end of the summer, anyone who wanted the vaccine will have the vaccine available to them by then. You may not be aware, but I kind of equate this whole thing to how we dealt with testing early on. In March, when this all started, testing was extremely difficult. I had to call the health department to get permission to test someone. Very rarely were we given that permission. When we did it, the test was sent out of state. And then we started getting the state labs, and we could test more. And then the hospitals were able to test in-house. And then we were testing at urgent care centers, and now you can go to CVS, or you can even go to your primary care doctor and get a test. So that just took some time for us to get through that process, and that's what we're going to deal with the vaccine as well. But getting the vaccine is extremely important for us to get through this, and we need about 70% of the population to take the vaccine in order to get the herd immunity that we need to stop wearing masks and stop socially distancing at events like this and getting back to normal life, kind of like what we had before COVID. So that's what I have to present with you about if anyone has any questions, I certainly will do my best to answer the questions. But as I mentioned, we still have quite a bit unknown.
Dr. Shepard, how would you respond to the people, and I'm sure you've heard it, there's a lot of them out there that say, well, I'm leery of this vaccine because they rushed it through?
Right, that's a very good question, and one we get commonly, and it's a very legitimate question. But I can tell you that while it seems like this process has been rushed, it really has not been rushed. The process of these vaccines, in particular the mRNA vaccines like the Pfizer and the Moderna, and even the AstraZeneca vaccine, have been, those processes and the science behind that has been in the works for decades. They've been looking at this with other viruses. They've been looking at this with cancer treatment. So thankfully, we had that science already in place, and that when it came time to use this science to create a vaccine, we were able to do so. The reason it's so quick is because this vaccine, the mRNA vaccines are based on genetic, the genome of the virus. The Genome Project years ago enabled us to map the human genome, which also has enabled us to map the genome of everything else, including viruses. And within 62 days of the genome, of COVID virus being isolated, they were able to map the virus and create the first vaccine to start in trials. That is what was so quick. You know, years ago, creating the measles vaccine took 10 years because it took all that time to create the vaccine. And then we had to test it. And we have not only created the vaccine quickly, but we are able to do the tests and the randomized controlled trials we need because we have so many people infected with COVID. The other thing that's, of course, important and has been monumental in getting it out quickly is all of the resources at the federal level that have gone into place, thankfully, to make this happen. You know, for a normal vaccine, they would go through the creation of the vaccine, they would go through the trials and all the time it would take to do that. And the manufacturers would not even create the vaccine until after all of those logistical things were done. The federal government backed up the companies and said, look, we want you to create it now. And so that when it's approved, like it was on Sunday, Monday morning, it's at Tampa General ready to be used. So that has also cut out a lot of the time that would have normally gone into place for a vaccine.
Good information, thank you. Other questions, council members?
No, I want to thank our police department or whoever it is who put up those flashing signs that tell people to stop the spread, wear your mask, because that means that we're taking this seriously here. So I appreciate that. And thank you so much for what you're doing and for telling everybody that you believe in it enough to take it yourself. That's a huge statement, and that makes a big difference.
Our city attorney has a question.
Is one shot or 2 shots necessary for this to be effective?
Right, good question too. For the Pfizer, which is the one we've already started giving, the Moderna, which we're expecting to be approved Thursday and rolling out before Christmas, and the AstraZeneca vaccine, which will come probably in January. Those are 2-shot vaccines. It's very important that you get both. If you get the first Pfizer and not the second, you're only about 50% protected. If you get that second one, you're now up to 95% protected from getting symptomatic COVID. There will be other vaccines that will come out. The Johnson & Johnson is a 1-shot vaccine. Logistically, that'll be a lot easier to do in some patient populations, because you can imagine keeping track of what vaccine you got and when you need to get it, because you can't get Pfizer #1 and Moderna #2. You got to get Pfizer #1 and Pfizer #2. So that's logistically a little bit of a challenge for the general population.
I have a question.
Councilmember Abel.
I was wondering if having contracted COVID and recovered, does that impact whether or not somebody ought to get the vaccine?
Right, another great question. They're recommending, my understanding is they're recommending at this time that people do get the vaccination even if they had COVID. The reason for that is that getting COVID, while we have tested patients that have gotten COVID, we've tested them for antibodies, the antibodies do not last. Some patients are only having antibody production for a month, some are having a couple months of protection. So once those antibodies wear off, that means you're going to get it again if you're exposed to enough of the virus. So it's very important to get the vaccination even if you had COVID. You wouldn't want to get the vaccination when you're actively sick with COVID, because we wouldn't want you to get a vaccine, any vaccine, when you're actively sick with an infection, because your immune system can't ramp up the response that's needed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember, other questions? And it's a little unorthodox, but we don't typically have this opportunity. Is there anybody in the gallery who has any questions that they'd like to ask Dr. Brooke? David, any? We just, I know it's a little out of the ordinary, but we don't usually get this opportunity.
1534 North River Hills Drive. One of the issues that we come across every year with flu and vaccinations for flu is that the flu mutates. Is there any evidence that this particular COVID bacteria mutates in making the shots less effective?
Okay. So you're right, vaccines do mutate. But the nice thing about these mRNA vaccines is the way that this vaccine is developed is that it's creating, the mRNA is only for the creation of what's called the spike protein. The spike protein is what's on the outside of the virus that allows it to clamp onto your cells and then inject the RNA from the virus into your cells. And then the cell hijacks your cells and your cells start to make all this virus and push it back out. So the only way that these mRNA vaccines like the Pfizer and the Moderna and even the AstraZeneca would become ineffective is if the virus mutated specifically at the spike protein, which would be very unlikely.
That's good to know.
I have another question, if I could. One of the protocols is that the vaccine has to be like negative 114 degrees Fahrenheit. Who's going to monitor that, and what happens if you get a shot and it was at 32 degrees Fahrenheit?
So the question for the public watching is that some of these vaccines have to be kept at extremely low temperatures in order to be effective. And two-part question is, one is who's going to monitor whether they are in fact kept at those temperatures, and then two is what happens if you got an injection that wasn't.
Right. So the Pfizer vaccine has to be kept at negative 70 degrees. It can be taken out of the freezer, but only for a short number of time, for a few hours, and then it's not good anymore. The Moderna has to be kept at negative 20, which is normal freezer temperature. The AstraZeneca, if I remember correctly, can be kept in a regular refrigerator, and the Johnson & Johnson as well. So those make them a little more logistically not as challenging as the Pfizer in particular. This is one of the reasons that Tampa General got the vaccine first, because they had weeks ago when this decision was made that Tampa General would get the first dose, or the first doses, they already had the deep freezers and the logistics to put this in play. It's interesting, there's a lot going into this to make sure that things stay as cold as they're supposed to. The box, when it comes, the box literally, it's like a smart box. It has a GPS on it. Pfizer knows exactly where that box is at all time. It knows the temperature inside the box, and it knows when the box is opened. It's pretty cool. So, and then of course the places that have these deep freezers like Tampa General, and then Baycare has some as well, they have very strict processes on how they're managing the vials in the freezer when they take them out. And this is why some of these big hospital systems are getting them first as well, because they're going to mass vaccinate their staff. We don't want to leave any of that laying around and not use it. So it's very closely monitored and watched. It's also very possible that the Pfizer vaccine could survive at a warmer temperature, but the way they created their study was using negative 70. Moderna's at negative 20, but it's a nearly identical vaccine. But they did their study design to allow them to kind of account for changes in temperature that Pfizer didn't do when they did their study.
What about the second part of my question? What happens if for some reason it gets left out and you get a 70-degree shot?
So if the Pfizer got left out on the counter for a long time, the shot wouldn't work. The mRNA would break down and it would no longer work, which is why they're so closely monitoring that.
But what about side effects?
The side effects wouldn't be any different if you left it out on the counter or if you didn't leave it on the counter. Yeah. But that's why some of these other vaccines logistically will be easier to use, which is probably what a lot of it will be getting as they roll out in the spring.
Thank you. Are there other questions, staff, council members? Dr. Shepard, thank you so much for coming. That was very informative. I know we're running late, but it was well worth the time. And thank you for taking time out away from home to come and share that with us.
I'm glad to help, and if any of you ever have any other questions or anything, Chief has my number. Everyone has my cell phone number, it seems like around here. So feel free to reach out. I'm always available 24/7. So. All right?
He's still up.
Yeah.
Thank you, Doctor.
Mr. Mayor, I just extend a thank you to Dr. Shepard and Chief Kemp. I mean, this is, again, just some more trying times that we're going to have to go through, but I thought getting some local information here would be helpful. So.
Very good. Yeah, no, it was very, very informative. And I hope there was a lot of people watching because I know there's a lot of questions out there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
One other item.
Yes, sir.
Okay. This Christmas falls on a Friday. One of the things I would like to ask council to do is to allow us to give employees off the 24th, which is Christmas Eve, which is Thursday. This year as well. I think we did it the last few years, and we really have not skipped a beat with providing service. Certainly given Thursday and Friday off, we can follow the same routine that we do for Thanksgiving, which would be the plan. So speaking up for the employees, I'd like council to allow us to take the 24th off.
Mr. Chambers, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I would like to make that.
Well, he's got to make the motion first.
But he did. I did make the motion, but I'll make it in. I'd like to give the employees Christmas Eve day off, the 24th.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion?
Great.
All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any Scrooges?
I was gonna say.
Who's brave enough to vote against that, right?
Say no to that.
Yes, thank you for bringing.
Don't want to put anybody on the spot, but yeah, thank you very much. I know the employees will appreciate it.
Along with that, you know, the last many years, we've given employees the Christmas Eve day off. And I'd like, if council agrees, to ask the staff to look at making that a permanent holiday. They can study it, see if they want to add a holiday or replace an existing holiday, report back to us, certainly before or during the budget process for next year.
I totally agree. I really do.
You know, I was going to bring that up when Mr. Stevenson and I talked, and I'm not opposed to it in spirit. It's up to you. I mean, I saw some value in him being able to bring that up every year too, but yeah, we typically do it, so it's up to you.
I just would like a consensus to have staff research it.
But you're taking his Christmas gift away there. He gets to every year ask us to do this and walk tall around here for.
Yeah, we just like being the good guys, right?
Yeah. I don't think anybody's opposed to it if you
I just want them to research it and tell us what they think.
Okay.
What that means to us on the budget or anything
Very
like
good.
that.
Anybody opposed to Mr. Chambers' suggestion?
Not at all.
Okay. You want to do that for us?
We'll look into it and report back to you.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Stevenson?
No, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate.
City Attorney?
I know we're running a little late, but I do appreciate the opportunity to bring Dr. Shepard in to do that. So
thank you.
Not a report, but at the risk of prolonging the meeting just a little longer, I wanted to give a little recognition this week to Deputy City Clerk Kristen Garcia and to the Director of our Code Compliance Department, Tom Baroni, in reference to one of the liens that you heard the reduction, you ruled on the reduction of today. This came about suddenly. The property was going to have a house closing this week. The lien was discovered by, I believe, the title company in the course of getting ready for the house closing, and there were some significant circumstances with the family who had owned the house. The son reached out to our city clerk, who then reached out to us. I reached out to Tom, and within less than probably 24 hours, it just so happened we had a code meeting coming up the next day, and this got on their agenda, and then with Jeannie and the city manager, it got on your agenda tonight for approval, and house closing, I believe, was today, but it's the recommendation from CEB satisfied a very nervous person from the title company, as well as the purchaser and the family who owned the house. So that everybody worked together quickly, and especially Tom, who had to then quick look up the property, do the report, and I just wanted to recognize them tonight.
Good. Thank you for letting us know. Appreciate that. Anything else? No? Just real quick, I know we're running late. I don't want to take a lot of time, but I just want to speak to Mr. Pogorlich, and hopefully somebody else is watching on TV. You know, we tend to focus on challenges. That's what we do. When we have meetings, we deal with rezoning, and we deal with budget, and we deal with the business of the city, but it's very easy for those of us who are close to this to kind of get a little jaded too, because that's our job, is to focus on the problems. But I just want to tell the public, there's a lot of tremendous stuff going on in Temple Terrace. It is morning in Temple Terrace, folks. We've got some terrific things going on. I came on council in 2016, and not that I can take credit for all this, it's the council, the city manager, it's a group effort. But we've got some tremendous things going on here. We just did, the police department got reaccredited. They've been accredited almost 10 years now. That's a voluntary thing. Not every police department is accredited because it's hard. And not everybody does it because you have to adhere to the standards. Our fire department has the top accreditation that any fire department in the country can get. We're one of the few that have that. I mean, they're good. They're not just, they cook good chili, yeah, but they're really good at fighting fires and paramedic stuff. The rec center renovations, I brag about the rec center all the time, and now we're doing more. You know, that rec center is the best. You go to any city, I don't care where you go, I don't think you're going to find a better municipal rec center than we have right here. You won't find a better place, right? The golf course project, I know people are, you know, well, I don't golf. I don't golf either, but this is the heart of our city, and the grass is going to grow again, and the trees are going to be replanted. We're going to have young, healthy, vibrant trees. The redevelopment, the buildings are coming up at 56th and Bush, right? We've been working on that 20 years probably at least. And there's buildings going up, the Amazon project out at Harding 301, right? Who would have envisioned that? Nobody did. And that's going up. It's coming up quick. Over the past few years, we've been able to fix some of our pay issues and retain our valued city employees. Now we're going to a new health insurance company and not just a company, a whole new plan that will better position us in the future. And I could go on and on and on and on and on. The public works, nobody gets excited about wastewater treatment until it doesn't work, right? And in the first time in the city's history, we're getting proactive in coming up with a master plan to make sure that works. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is a great time to be in Temple Terrace. This is probably the best of times that Temple Terrace has had in many, many years. And I'd like to say, oh yeah, it's all because I got on council, which is not true, but we have a great council. We've had good council members over the past few years. We have good city managers, we have good directors, our employees. It's just clicking. It is clicking. And so, you know, if you hear doom and gloom and, you know, you choose to get your Facebook information, you know, and get your medical information off Facebook and get your Temple Terrace news off of Facebook, you're missing the boat because there's a lot of good stuff going on here and there's more to come. So anyway, I'm sorry, that was a 3-minute commercial here, but I really, you know, I'm proud of what we're doing. I'm proud of the council. And I like to brag. I bragged a little bit at Plant City last night, so they got good stuff going on too.
Yeah, they do.
Mr. Stevenson.
If I can wish everybody a Merry Christmas. The plants in front of you, the poinsettias, are for you to take home. They are a product of a lot of work out of my wife. Those plants have had a lot of TLC in the last 2 weeks, and I know she's taken that very seriously. So I know that she would make sure that you guys enjoy them. Don't throw them away. Put them in the ground.
No.
They'll last if you take care of them. But Merry Christmas to everybody,
Thank you very much.
certainly. I don't know that I'll see everybody in person again, but extend a Merry Christmas to everybody.
Thank you. Any other business to come before the council? If not, we are adjourned. Well, you made it through.
Made it through.
Who remembers